The Billionaire Brain Hack. Upgrade your mind. Multiply your life. You're using 3% of your brain's wealth-building capacity right now. Billionaires don't think faster, they think differently. What if one mental shift unlocked $10 million decisions? Your brain has a poverty mode and a prosperity mode. Most people never find the switch. Why do lottery winners go broke while billionaires rebuild fortunes? What neural pattern separates Elon Musk from the masses? Can you rewire your brain in 90 days? Tonight, you'll learn the exact cognitive upgrade sequence. By tomorrow, you'll think like you're worth $100 million. Right now, as you're listening to these words, your brain is processing information in a very specific way. It's using neural pathways that were carved into your gray matter before you could even talk. These pathways determine how you see money, how you assess risk, how you make decisions, and ultimately, how much wealth you'll create in your lifetime. The good news is that these pathways can be changed. The better news is that you're about to learn exactly how to change them. Let me tell you about a study that happened at Stanford University in 2019. Neuroscientists put 30 billionaires into an fMRI machine and scanned their brains while they made business decisions. Then they did the same thing with 30 middle-income employees. What they found shocked everyone in the lab. The differences weren't subtle. They were dramatic. It was as if they were looking at two different species of human being. The billionaire brains showed 34% more density in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and decision-making. Their pattern recognition speed was 340% faster when identifying opportunities. And here's the most interesting part. When presented with risky scenarios, the billionaires showed 67% less activation in the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. They literally experienced less fear when looking at the exact same opportunities that terrified the average person. But the researchers discovered something even more important. These neural differences weren't genetic. They weren't hardwired from birth. They were developed, they were learned, they were the result of specific thinking patterns repeated over years until they became automatic. Which means one profound thing: you can develop them too. Your brain right now is probably operating in what I call poverty mode. This isn't an insult. It's a technical description. Poverty mode is characterized by several key features. Your brain focuses on scarcity instead of abundance. It catastrophizes risk instead of calculating it. It thinks in weeks and months instead of years and decades. It seeks safety instead of leverage. It values certainty over opportunity. And most importantly, it processes information through a filter of limitation. Prosperity mode is completely different. In prosperity mode, your brain scans for abundance and opportunity. It assesses risk mathematically instead of emotionally. It thinks across decades and generations. It seeks multiplication instead of addition. It values optimal uncertainty. And it processes information through a filter of possibility. The switch between these two modes isn't mystical, it's neurological. And that's what this entire audiobook is about, teaching you to flip that switch permanently. Let me share something personal. I grew up in a household where money was a constant source of stress. My parents fought about it weekly. My father would come home, exhausted from his job, and collapse in front of the television. My mother would quietly worry about bills while cooking dinner. The unspoken message was clear. Money is hard to get and easy to lose. Life is about surviving, not thriving. Work is suffering you endure for a paycheck. These weren't lessons anyone taught me explicitly. They were absorbed, downloaded directly into my subconscious neural networks between the ages of 0 and 7. By the time I was 12, I had fully internalized the belief that wealthy people were either lucky, corrupt, or both. I had no mental model for creating wealth legitimately. My brain had been programmed for poverty mode, and I didn't even know it. It wasn't until my late 20s that I encountered my first real billionaire. I was working as a consultant, and I ended up in a meeting with a man who had built and sold 3 companies for a combined total of over $2 billion. I expected him to be arrogant, disconnected, maybe even ruthless. Instead, he was curious, energetic, and almost childlike in his enthusiasm for new ideas. But what struck me most was how he thought. We were discussing a potential business opportunity. Everyone else in the room was focused on the risks, the obstacles, the reasons it might fail. He was focused on something completely different. He kept asking questions like, what if we could scale this to 10 million users? And how could we make this 10 times more valuable? While we were thinking about protecting downside, he was calculating upside. While we were worried about losing, he was designing systems to win. His brain was simply operating in a different mode than ours. That meeting changed everything for me. I realized that becoming wealthy wasn't about working harder or being smarter. It was about thinking differently. It was about upgrading the operating system running in my head. So I became obsessed. I spent the next 5 years studying neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and the thinking patterns of ultra-high net worth individuals. I interviewed 63 people worth over $100 million. I read over 400 books on cognition, decision-making, and wealth creation. I attended seminars, hired coaches, and experimented on myself relentlessly. And gradually, I figured out the code. Identified the specific neural patterns that separate billionaire brains from everyone else. More importantly, I discovered how to install those patterns in my own brain. The results were extraordinary. Within 3 years of beginning this process, I had gone from being a struggling consultant to building and selling my first company for $18 million. 5 years after that, my net worth crossed $100 million. I'm not sharing this to impress you. I'm sharing it to impress upon you that this actually works. Your brain is upgradable. Your thinking patterns can be rewired. Your financial reality can be transformed. But only if you're willing to do the work. And make no mistake, this is work. Reading this book or listening to this audiobook isn't enough. Nodding along and agreeing with the concepts isn't enough. You have to actively engage in the process of neural rewiring. You have to complete the exercises. You have to practice the techniques. You have to install the new patterns through repetition until they become automatic. But here's the beautiful part. If you do the work, the changes are permanent. You don't have to maintain them through willpower. Once the new pathways are myelinated, once the new patterns are installed, they become your new default. You'll literally be unable to think like a poor person anymore, even if you try. So, let's begin with the foundation of everything. Neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. This is one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience. For most of human history, scientists believed that your brain stopped developing in your early 20s and then remained essentially unchanged until it started deteriorating in old age. This was completely wrong. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences, your thoughts, and your behaviors. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it means that you can literally sculpt your brain like clay throughout your entire life. Every time you think a thought, your brain creates a neural pathway. Think that same thought repeatedly, and the pathway gets stronger. Neurons that fire together wire together. This is the fundamental mechanism of all learning. When you learned to ride a bike, you were creating and strengthening neural pathways related to balance, coordination, and motor control. When you learned to read, you were creating and strengthening pathways related to pattern recognition, language processing, and comprehension. And when you think thoughts related to money, opportunity, risk, and value, you're creating and strengthening pathways that determine your financial destiny. Right now, you have very strong neural pathways related to your current financial situation. If you're middle class, you have middle-class neural pathways. If you're struggling, you have struggling neural pathways. These pathways were created through repetition. Your parents modeled certain money behaviors, and you repeated them. Your peer group reinforced certain beliefs, and you internalized them. Your experiences validated certain assumptions, and you strengthened them. Over years and decades, these pathways became highways in your brain. They became automatic. They became you. But here's the critical insight. You can build new highways. You can create billionaire neural pathways through exactly the same mechanism. Repetition. The process takes time, but it's absolutely achievable. Research shows that it takes approximately 21 days of consistent practice to begin forming a new neural pathway. It takes about 66 days for that pathway to become a habit, and it takes roughly 90 days for that pathway to become automatic, to become your new default pattern. This is why I structured this entire program around a 90-day transformation sprint. 90 days is enough time to literally rewire your brain, to install new patterns, to upgrade your mental operating system from poverty mode to prosperity mode. But you can't just passively absorb information and expect change. You have to actively engage in the rewiring process. This means doing specific exercises designed to create and strengthen billionaire neural pathways. This means practicing new thinking patterns until they feel natural. This means deliberately interrupting old patterns and replacing them with new ones. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Let's say you currently have a strong neural pathway related to the belief that making money requires hard work and long hours. This belief creates a specific pattern in your brain. When you encounter an opportunity, your brain automatically calculates how much time and effort it will require. If it seems like a lot of work, you feel resistance. Your brain releases stress hormones. You probably procrastinate or avoid the opportunity entirely. This all happens automatically, below your conscious awareness. Now let's say you want to install a new belief. Making money requires leverage and systems. To create this new neural pathway, you need to repeatedly expose your brain to examples of people making money through leverage. You need to study business models that scale without proportional time investment. You need to analyze investments that generate passive income. You need to practice asking the question, how could I achieve this result with less personal effort? Every time you do this, you're strengthening the new pathway. At first, it feels unnatural. The new pattern requires conscious effort, but after 21 days of practice, it starts to feel more familiar. After 66 days, it becomes a habit. After 90 days, it becomes automatic. You start seeing leverage opportunities everywhere. Your default question changes, your behavior changes, and eventually your results change. This is neural rewiring in action, and you can apply this process to every single mental pattern related to wealth creation. But first, you need to understand what patterns you're currently running. You need to identify your poverty programming, because you can't change what you can't see. Most of your beliefs about money were installed between the ages of 0 and 7. During this critical developmental window, your brain was in a highly suggestible state. You absorbed beliefs from your parents, your family, your culture, and your early experiences without any critical filter. These beliefs became the foundation of your financial operating system. If your parents fought about money, you probably developed the belief that money causes conflict. If your parents seemed stressed and overworked, you probably developed the belief that earning money requires suffering. If your parents criticized wealthy people, you probably developed the belief that being rich makes you a bad person. These weren't conscious lessons. They were environmental downloads. And here's the insidious part. These beliefs are invisible to you. They operate below your conscious awareness. They feel like truth, like reality, like the way things are. But they're not reality. They're programming, and programming can be rewritten. Think about your own childhood for a moment. What was the emotional atmosphere around money in your household? Was it relaxed or tense, abundant or scarce, optimistic or pessimistic? What messages did you receive about wealthy people? Were they admired or resented? What messages did you receive about work? Was it portrayed as fulfilling or draining? These early experiences created neural pathways that are still influencing your financial decisions today. One of my clients, a brilliant software engineer named Michael, couldn't understand why he kept self-sabotaging every time his income started to increase significantly. He would land a major contract, then mysteriously lose motivation and let the project fall apart. He would build momentum in his consulting business, then find ways to undermine his own success. It was a pattern that had repeated itself for over a decade. When we dug into his childhood, we discovered the root cause. Michael's father had been a successful businessman who traveled constantly for work and missed most of Michael's childhood. Michael's mother had repeatedly told him, "Your father cares more about money than he cares about family." This created a powerful neural association. Financial success equals abandoning the people you love. Every time Michael started becoming successful, his subconscious brain activated this old program and sabotaged him to protect him from becoming like his father. Once Michael identified this pattern, he could begin rewiring it. He created a new belief: wealth gives me the freedom to spend more time with the people I love. He found examples of wealthy people who prioritized family. He designed a business model that allowed him to work remotely and set his own schedule. He practiced visualizing himself as both successful and present. Within 6 months, his income had tripled, and his relationship with his family had actually improved. The old pattern had been interrupted and replaced. You have patterns like this too. Everyone does. And until you identify them and interrupt them, they'll continue running your life from the shadows. So let's do some pattern identification work right now. Think about your current financial situation. What's the story you tell yourself about why you're not wealthier than you are? Maybe it's that you don't have the right connections. Maybe it's that you're not smart enough. Maybe it's that you're too ethical to do what it takes. Maybe it's that you had a rough start in life. Whatever your story is, I want you to recognize that it's just that, a story. It's a narrative your brain created to explain your circumstances. But it's not the truth. It's a pattern. And patterns can be changed. Here's a powerful question to sit with. What would become possible if your story about money was completely wrong? What if the limitations you believe are real are actually just outdated programming running in an upgradable system? The truth is, your brain is designed to keep you safe, not to make you wealthy. Your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, is constantly scanning for threats. This was incredibly useful when humans lived in the wild and faced physical dangers daily. But in the modern world, the amygdala often works against us. It perceives uncertainty as danger. It perceives risk as threat. It perceives opportunity as potential loss. This is why most people's default response to a big opportunity is fear. Their amygdala hijacks their decision-making process. They feel anxiety in their chest. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They talk themselves out of action. They retreat to the false safety of the familiar. This is poverty mode in action. Billionaire brains have learned to override the amygdala's fear response. They've created neural pathways that assess risk mathematically rather than emotionally. They've trained themselves to feel excited by uncertainty rather than threatened by it. They've installed a different default response, and you can do the same thing. But it requires a specific practice. Stress inoculation training. Just like you can build physical immunity by exposing yourself to small doses of a pathogen, you can build psychological immunity by exposing yourself to small doses of the thing you fear. If you're afraid of rejection, you practice seeking rejection intentionally. If you're afraid of failure, you practice failing on purpose at low-stakes ventures. If you're afraid of judgment, you practice doing things that invite judgment. Each exposure rewires your brain slightly. Your amygdala learns that the feared outcome isn't actually catastrophic. The fear response weakens. New neural pathways form, and gradually you develop what I call failure immunity. You become bulletproof to the psychological threats that paralyze most people. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She came to me as a talented graphic designer who dreamed of starting her own agency, but was paralyzed by fear of failure. She had spent 3 years planning, researching, and preparing, but had never actually launched. Her amygdala was running the show. I gave her an assignment: fail 30 times in 30 days. She had to attempt things that she expected to fail at. She had to collect rejections. She had to do small things that scared her and document the results. At first, she hated it. She pitched her services to companies way out of her league and got rejected. She published work online and received criticism. She asked for meetings with influential people and got ignored. Each rejection stung. But something interesting started happening around day 15. The rejections started bothering her less. By day 25, she was actually enjoying the process. She felt liberated. The thing she had feared for years had lost its power over her. On day 31, she officially launched her agency. Within the first year, she signed 6 clients and generated $400,000 in revenue. Within 3 years, she had built a team of 12 people and was doing over $3 million in annual sales. The only thing that changed was her brain. She had inoculated herself against the fear that had been holding her back. This is the power of deliberate neural rewiring. You're not at the mercy of your fears. You can train your brain to respond differently. Now let's talk about one of the most important mental patterns that separates billionaire brains from everyone else: time horizon. Most people think in very short time frames. They plan week to week, month to month, maybe year to year if they're unusually forward-thinking. This short-term thinking is a function of their neural wiring. Their brains are optimized for immediate results and quick feedback loops. This made sense for most of human history when survival was the primary goal. But it's absolutely devastating for wealth creation. Billionaires think across decades. They make decisions today based on outcomes they expect 20 or 30 years from now. They plant seeds that won't bear fruit for a generation. They build infrastructure that their grandchildren will benefit from. This long-term thinking is one of their most powerful advantages because it allows them to pursue strategies that are invisible to short-term thinkers. Think about compound interest. If you invest $10,000 at an 8% annual return, you'll have roughly $21,000 after 10 years. Not bad. But if you leave that same investment alone for 30 years, you'll have $100,000. And if you leave it for 50 years, you'll have $460,000. The magic doesn't happen in the first decade. It happens in the third, fourth, and fifth decades. But you only capture that magic if you think in multi-decade time frames. The same principle applies to business building, relationship development, skill acquisition, and reputation creation. The most valuable things take time to compound. But most people give up too early because their brains are wired for short-term thinking. So, how do you rewire your brain to think long-term? You practice a specific technique called future self-connection. Research in psychology shows that most people think about their future selves as if they're different people. You probably don't feel a strong emotional connection to the 80-year-old version of you. That person feels distant, abstract, almost fictional. This is a major problem because it means you'll consistently make decisions that benefit present you at the expense of future you. Billionaires have strong connections to their future selves. They make decisions as if their 80-year-old self is in the room watching them. They ask themselves, "What would I regret not doing?" They imagine looking back from the end of their life and evaluating the choices they're making today. You can strengthen your future self-connection through a visualization practice. Close your eyes and imagine yourself at age 80. Really see this person in detail. Notice the lines on their face, the quality of their eyes, the way they carry themselves. Now imagine this older version of you looking back at your current self. What do they wish you had done? What risks do they wish you had taken? What opportunities do they wish you had pursued? What relationships do they wish you had invested in? Take a moment to do this right now. Pause and actually visualize your 80-year-old self. Let that future version of you speak to present you. What are they saying? When I first did this exercise, I got an unexpected message. My future self wasn't focused on business success or wealth accumulation. He was focused on relationships and experiences. He wished I had spent more time with people I loved. He wished I had traveled more. He wished I had taken more creative risks. This was a wake-up call. I realized I was optimizing my life for metrics that wouldn't actually matter at the end. I made significant changes based on that insight. But my future self also wished I had started building wealth earlier, not because of the money itself, but because of the freedom it would have provided, the ability to help family members in need, the capacity to fund meaningful projects, the option to walk away from toxic situations without financial pressure. Wealth, he explained, wasn't the goal. It was a tool for creating a life of meaning and impact. This kind of insight only comes when you connect with your future self. And the more you practice this connection, the more your brain's time horizon expands. You start naturally thinking in decades. You evaluate decisions through a longer lens. You develop patience for compound effects. This is one of the most important neural upgrades you can make. Now let's talk about something that might be uncomfortable. Your current peer group is probably keeping you poor. There's a famous saying that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't just a motivational platitude. It's neuroscience. Your brain has specialized neurons called mirror neurons that automatically mimic the behaviors, emotions, and thought patterns of people around you. This is how children learn language and social skills. But it's also how adults unconsciously adopt the limiting beliefs and habits of their peer group. If everyone around you thinks that earning 6 figures is impressive, your brain will unconsciously set that as a ceiling. If everyone around you thinks that taking risks is dangerous, your brain will adopt that perspective. If everyone around you complains about money problems, your brain will normalize financial struggle. You absorb the thinking patterns of your social environment whether you want to or not. This is why billionaires are so careful about who they spend time with. They understand that their peer group determines their mental environment, and mental environment determines neural development, and neural development determines outcomes. If you're serious about upgrading your brain to billionaire-level thinking, you need to upgrade your peer group. This doesn't mean abandoning your friends. It means being strategic about who influences your thinking. It means spending more time with people who think bigger than you do. It means joining communities of high achievers. It means finding mentors who can model the thought patterns you want to install. One of the most valuable investments I ever made was joining a mastermind group of entrepreneurs, all doing between $10 and $100 million in annual revenue. The membership fee was $50,000 per year, which felt insane at the time. But within the first 3 months, my thinking had completely transformed. Just being in rooms with these people, hearing how they analyzed opportunities, watching how they made decisions, listening to what they considered normal, it upgraded my mental operating system faster than anything else I had tried. There was a conversation I'll never forget. We were discussing a potential investment opportunity that required $2 million. Everyone in my previous peer group would have focused on the risk of losing $2 million. But in this room, the conversation was completely different. People were analyzing the upside potential, the strategic value, the opportunity cost of not investing. One person said something that rewired my brain. The risk isn't losing $2 million. The risk is missing a $20 million outcome because you were afraid. This was billionaire-level thinking, and by being in that environment, I absorbed it. Your environment is programming your brain every single day. The content you consume, the conversations you have, the People you interact with, they're all creating and reinforcing neural pathways. If you want different pathways, you need a different environment. This brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in wealth creation: leverage. Poor people trade time for money. Middle-class people trade specialized time for money. Wealthy people trade leverage for money. Billionaires stack multiple forms of leverage simultaneously. Let me explain what I mean. If you have a job, you're trading your time directly for money. You work 40 hours. You get paid for 40 hours. The ceiling on your income is determined by how many hours you can work and how much someone will pay for each hour. This is the lowest form of economic participation. If you're a high-paid professional like a doctor or lawyer, you're trading specialized time for money. You can charge more per hour because of your expertise, but you're still fundamentally limited by time. You can't scale beyond your personal capacity. But if you own a business with employees, you're using leverage. You're getting paid for their time, not just yours. If you have 10 employees, each generating $10,000 in monthly value, and you capture $3,000 per employee in profit, you're making $30,000 per month from their time, not yours. This is leverage. If you build a software product that you sell to thousands of customers, that's even more leverage. You create value once and sell it repeatedly without proportional time investment. A YouTube video, a book, an online course, these are all forms of leverage. Create once, benefit repeatedly. If you invest money in appreciating assets, that's financial leverage. Your money is working for you even while you sleep. If you build a personal brand that gives you access to opportunities, that's reputation leverage. If you create systems and processes that can operate without you, that's systems leverage. Billionaires don't just use one form of leverage. They stack multiple forms simultaneously. They build businesses with employees and systems. They create intellectual property that generates passive income. They invest capital in appreciating assets. They cultivate networks that open doors. They build personal brands that attract opportunities. They engineer their lives so that the same unit of effort generates exponentially more value. The difference between linear thinking and exponential thinking is leverage, and it's primarily a neural pattern. Most people's brains are wired to think linearly. If they want to double their income, they think about working twice as many hours or finding a job that pays twice as much. This is poverty mode thinking. Billionaire brains automatically scan for leverage. If they want to 10x their income, they ask, how can I create 10 times more value with the same or less effort? This is prosperity mode thinking. You can train your brain to think in terms of leverage by repeatedly asking leverage questions. Every time you encounter a goal or problem, practice asking, how could I achieve this with half the effort? What's the most leveraged approach to this? How could I 10x this result instead of doubling it? What form of leverage am I not seeing? At first, these questions will feel unnatural. Your brain will resist them. It will want to revert to familiar linear solutions. But if you force yourself to ask leverage questions consistently for 30 days, something remarkable happens. Your brain starts automatically scanning for leverage. You begin seeing opportunities that were invisible before. Your default thinking pattern shifts from addition to multiplication. I remember when this shift happened for me. I was running a consulting business and had reached my capacity. I was working 60 hours per week and couldn't take on more clients. My old thinking pattern would have been to hire an assistant to free up some of my time so I could take on a few more clients. That's linear thinking. But by that point, I had trained my brain to think in terms of leverage. So I asked a different question. How can I serve 100 times more people without working more hours? This question led me to create a digital product that packaged my consulting methodology into an online course. I spent 3 months building it, then launched it to my audience. In the first year, it generated $800,000 in revenue with almost no ongoing time investment. That's leverage. But here's what most people miss. Leverage thinking isn't just about business. It applies to every area of life. Relationships can be leveraged. Health habits can be leveraged. Learning can be leveraged. Time can be leveraged. Once you install the leverage pattern in your brain, you start applying it everywhere automatically. Now we need to talk about something critical, the difference between income and wealth. Most people confuse these two concepts. They think having a high income makes them wealthy. This is wrong and dangerous. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep and grow. You can have a massive income and be poor if you spend everything. And you can have a modest income and be wealthy if you save and invest intelligently. Billionaires focus on wealth, not income. They understand that wealth is a function of two things: creating value and capturing value. Creating value means building businesses, assets, and systems that generate ongoing returns. Capturing value means converting those returns into equity and appreciating assets rather than consuming them. The middle-class pattern is to earn a salary and spend it on liabilities. A nice car, a bigger house, expensive vacations, designer clothes. These things feel like wealth because they're expensive, but they're actually poverty in disguise. They drain your resources without generating returns. Every dollar you spend on liabilities is a dollar that can't compound into wealth. The billionaire pattern is completely different. They earn money and immediately convert it into assets. Businesses, real estate, stocks, intellectual property, anything that generates ongoing returns. They live below their means even when their means are enormous. They delay gratification. They think in terms of net worth, not lifestyle. This requires a fundamental neural rewiring because consumer culture has programmed your brain to equate spending with success. You've been trained to want the expensive car, the luxury watch, the first-class flight. These things send social signals that you're successful, but billionaires know that real wealth is invisible. It's sitting in investment accounts, compounding quietly. It's equity in businesses. It's ownership of appreciating assets. So here's a powerful practice. Track your net worth monthly instead of your income. Calculate the total value of your assets minus your liabilities. Then focus all your attention on increasing that number. This one shift in focus will completely change your financial behavior because it changes what your brain is optimizing for. When I made this shift, I stopped caring about expensive purchases that would have impressed my peers. I started getting excited about things like dividend payments and property appreciation. My brain began seeing spending as painful because it meant moving money from the asset column to the liability column. This is the neural pattern of wealth builders. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine two people, both earning $200,000 per year. Person A spends $180,000 on lifestyle and saves $20,000. Person B spends $80,000 on lifestyle and saves $120,000. After 10 years, assuming an 8% investment return, Person A has about 300,000 in assets. Person B has 1.8 million, same income, completely different wealth trajectories. The difference is neural programming. Now I want to address something that often gets ignored in wealth-building conversations: the psychology of entrepreneurship versus employment. Most people are neurologically wired for employment. This isn't a criticism, it's an observation. The education system, cultural conditioning, and family programming all conspire to create employee-minded brains. Employee-minded brains seek security, clear instructions, predictable outcomes, and external validation. They want someone else to decide what they should work on, how they should do it, and whether they're succeeding. Entrepreneur-minded brains are completely different. They seek autonomy, create their own instructions, tolerate ambiguity, and generate their own validation. They're comfortable with uncertainty. They prefer equity to salary. They think in terms of systems rather than tasks. The neural difference between these two mindsets is profound. Employee brains activate stress responses when faced with ambiguity. Entrepreneur brains activate excitement responses. Employee brains feel safe following someone else's plan. Entrepreneur brains feel trapped by someone else's plan. Here's the challenge. You were almost certainly raised to have an employee brain. Your parents probably told you to get good grades so you could get a good job. Your teachers rewarded you for following instructions and punished you for coloring outside the lines. You were trained to seek approval from authority figures. You learned that security comes from having a boss who tells you what to do. None of this is your fault, but all of it needs to be rewired if you want to build significant wealth. Because the path to 9 and 10-figure wealth almost always runs through entrepreneurship. Yes, you can become a millionaire as an employee, but becoming a billionaire requires ownership. It requires building something valuable and capturing a significant portion of that value. So, how do you rewire your brain from employee to entrepreneur? You practice small acts of autonomy. You start making decisions without asking permission. You create things without waiting for instructions. You take responsibility for outcomes rather than blaming circumstances. You develop the habit of seeing problems as opportunities rather than obstacles. One exercise I recommend is the daily entrepreneurial decision. Every single day, make one decision completely independently, without consulting anyone or seeking approval. It can be small. What to eat, where to go, what to work on, how to solve a problem. The content of the decision matters less than the practice of autonomous decision-making. Do this for 90 days and you'll feel a fundamental shift in your psychology. Let's talk about value creation, which is the foundation of all wealth. Money is not the goal. Money is a byproduct. The goal is value creation. Money flows to people who create value for others. The more value you create, the more money flows to you. The more people you create value for, the more money flows to you. This is the fundamental equation of wealth. But most people have been trained to think about money directly rather than thinking about value. They ask, how can I make more money? Instead of asking, how can I create more value? This is backwards. It's like trying to grow a tree by pulling on its branches instead of watering its roots. Billionaire brains are obsessed with value creation. They're constantly scanning for problems they can solve, needs they can fill, desires they can satisfy. They think in terms of impact before they think in terms of income. And here's the key insight. The bigger the problem you solve, the more money you make. If you solve a small problem for one person, you might make $10. If you solve a medium problem for 1,000 people, you might make $100,000. If you solve a big problem for 10 million people, you might make $1 billion. The math is straightforward. So, the question becomes, how do you train your brain to see valuable problems worth solving? You practice what I call the problem-spotting safari. For one full week, carry a notebook with you everywhere. Every time you notice a problem, an inefficiency, a frustration, a need, write it down. Don't filter, don't judge. Just observe and record. By the end of the week, you should have at least 100 problems documented. Then you analyze your list. For each problem, ask, how many people have this problem? How painful is this problem? How much would people pay to solve it? What's the current solution, and why is it inadequate? Could I build a better solution? This exercise rewires your brain in two ways. First, it trains you to notice problems instead of accepting them as normal. Most people are blind to problems because their brains have learned to tune them out. But problems are opportunities in disguise. Second, it trains you to think about problems from a market perspective. You start evaluating problems based on their commercial potential. When I did this exercise, one of the problems I noticed was that consultants waste enormous amounts of time creating proposals for potential clients. I experienced this frustration myself and heard other consultants complaining about it constantly. So I asked the key questions. How many consultants are there? Millions. How painful is this problem? Very. Hours wasted weekly. How much would they pay to solve it? Probably a few $100s. What's the current solution? Either doing it manually or using clunky enterprise software. This analysis led me to create a software tool that automated proposal creation for consultants. I built a simple version in 3 months, launched it to my network, and had paying customers within a week. That business eventually grew to generate over $2 million per year in recurring revenue. It started with simply noticing a problem and analyzing its commercial potential. Value creation opportunities are everywhere. You just need to train your brain to see them. But noticing opportunities isn't enough. You also need to execute on them. And this is where most people fail. They have great ideas, but they never act on them. They plan and prepare and research and analyze, but they never actually build anything or launch anything. This is often called analysis paralysis, but it's really a neural pattern of fear-based hesitation. Billionaires have a completely different relationship with execution. They have what's called a bias toward action. Their default response to an idea is to test it immediately rather than overthinking it. They understand that real learning happens through doing, not planning. They practice the principle of ready, fire. Aim instead of ready. Aim, 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 aim. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means making fast decisions with incomplete information and then adjusting based on feedback. It means launching minimum viable versions instead of waiting for perfection. It means treating business as an experiment rather than a high-stakes gamble. You can develop a bias toward action through a simple practice, the 24-hour rule. Every time you have an idea, take one concrete action within 24 hours. It doesn't have to be big. It could be buying a domain name, writing an outline, making a phone call, building a basic prototype. The specific action matters less than establishing the pattern of immediate movement. I learned this lesson from a mentor who built and sold 4 companies for a combined value of over $600 million. I once asked him how he decided which ideas to pursue. He said something I'll never forget. "I don't decide, I test. I take every idea that excites me, and I run a 48-hour experiment. I spend 2 days trying to make progress on it. If I get traction, I keep going. If I hit walls, I move on. Most of my ideas die in 48 hours, but the ones that don't die become businesses." This approach completely changed how I operated. I stopped agonizing over decisions. I stopped trying to predict outcomes. I just started testing everything quickly. Some tests failed immediately. Some revealed unexpected problems. But some turned into million-dollar businesses. The key was velocity. Moving fast, testing fast, learning fast, adjusting fast. Think about your own life. How many ideas have you had that you never acted on? How many opportunities have you let slip because you were waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan? What might have happened if you had just started, even messily, even imperfectly? Here's another critical pattern to install: failure immunity. The average billionaire has failed multiple times before succeeding. Many have gone through bankruptcies. Some have lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. The difference between them and everyone else isn't that they don't fail. It's that they don't internalize failure as identity. When most people fail, their brains catastrophize. They interpret the failure as evidence that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy of success. They feel shame. They lose confidence. They become more risk-averse. They retreat to safety. This neural pattern makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. In primitive environments, failure could be fatal, so the brain learned to treat failure as a serious threat and respond with strong aversion. But in the modern world, especially in business, failure is just data. It's information about what doesn't work. It's a necessary part of the experimentation process. It's the cost of innovation. Billionaires understand this intellectually, but more importantly, they've rewired their brains to feel this emotionally. When they fail, their brains don't activate shame circuits. They activate curiosity circuits. They immediately start analyzing what happened, what they can learn, what they'll do differently next time. The emotional experience is fundamentally different. Failure feels like an interesting puzzle rather than a personal catastrophe. You can develop this same pattern through deliberate practice. The exercise I mentioned earlier, collecting 30 rejections in 30 days, is one approach. But here's another. Create a failure resume. Document every significant failure you've experienced. For each one, write 3 things you learned and how those lessons benefited you later. This exercise rewires your brain's interpretation of past failures. Instead of seeing them as evidence of inadequacy, you see them as valuable education. I keep a failure resume in my journal. It includes the time I launched a product that generated 0 sales, the time I hired the wrong person and it nearly destroyed my company, the time I invested in a partnership that cost me $200,000. Each entry includes what I learned, and when I read through it, I don't feel shame. I feel gratitude. Those failures taught me lessons that saved me from much bigger failures later. They were expensive education, but they were worth it. Once you've reframed past failures, you can start seeking new ones intentionally. This sounds crazy, but it's incredibly powerful. Design small experiments that you expect to fail. Try to sell something you haven't built yet. Pitch yourself for an opportunity you're not qualified for. Attempt something ambitious that you probably can't pull off. The goal isn't success. The goal is building psychological scar tissue. The goal is teaching your brain that failure is survivable, that it doesn't kill you, that it actually makes you stronger. After doing this for a few months, you'll notice something remarkable. The fear of failure that used to paralyze you will simply disappear. You'll be able to take bigger risks because the downside won't feel catastrophic anymore. This is one of the most valuable neural upgrades you can make. Now let's talk about decision-making, specifically decision velocity. One of the most noticeable differences between billionaires and average people is how fast they make decisions. Billionaires decide in minutes what takes most people months. This isn't because they're impulsive or reckless. It's because they've developed decision-making frameworks that allow them to evaluate options quickly, without exhaustive analysis. Jeff Bezos talks about two types of decisions: one-way door decisions and two-way door decisions. One-way door decisions are irreversible or very difficult to reverse. These deserve careful consideration. But two-way door decisions are reversible. You can try something, and if it doesn't work, you can go back. Bezos says that 90% of decisions are two-way doors, but most people treat them like one-way doors. They agonize over choices that could easily be undone. This is a neural pattern. Most people's brains are wired to overestimate the consequences of decisions. Their risk assessment systems are miscalibrated. They imagine catastrophic outcomes from minor choices. This creates decision paralysis. Billionaire brains have been recalibrated. They accurately assess the true stakes of decisions. They recognize when a choice is easily reversible. They use the 70% rule. If they have 70% of the information they wish they had, they decide. They understand that waiting for 100% certainty means missing opportunities. You can increase your decision velocity through practice. Start with small decisions. Force yourself to choose in 10 seconds instead of 10 minutes. Decide what to eat, what to wear, what to watch, what to buy without deliberation. This sounds trivial, but it rewires your decision-making circuits. Your brain learns that fast decisions don't lead to disaster. The fear of choosing wrong diminishes. Then move to bigger decisions. Give yourself time limits. 20 minutes to decide whether to attend an event. 1 hour to decide whether to pursue a project. 1 day to decide whether to make a hire. The specific time limits matter less than establishing the pattern of bounded decision-making. I used to be a chronic overanalyzer. I would spend weeks researching every decision, considering every angle, trying to eliminate all risk. It was exhausting, and it cost me countless opportunities. Then I implemented a decision velocity protocol. For any decision under $10,000 in stakes, I forced myself to decide within 1 hour. For any decision under $100,000, I gave myself 1 day. For anything bigger, I allowed 1 week maximum. The first month was uncomfortable. I made some suboptimal choices, but I also made 10 times more progress than usual, and within 3 months, my decision accuracy had actually improved. Turns out that overthinking doesn't lead to better decisions. It just leads to slower decisions. The additional information you gather beyond the 70% threshold rarely changes the outcome. Fast decision-making also compounds into momentum. When you decide quickly, you act quickly. When you act quickly, you learn quickly. When you learn quickly, you improve quickly. Velocity creates its own advantages. Let's shift to something that might be uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential. Abundance versus scarcity. Your brain is currently running either an abundance operating system or a scarcity operating system. This determines how you interpret events, how you respond to challenges, and ultimately, what results you create. Scarcity mode interprets the world through a lens of limitation. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunity, not enough luck. People in scarcity mode focus on what's missing. They worry about loss. They compete for finite resources. They feel threatened by other people's success. They hoard rather than share. They operate from fear. Abundance mode interprets the world through a lens of possibility. More than enough money, more than enough time, more than enough opportunity, more than enough to go around. People in abundance mode focus on what's available. They look for gains. They collaborate to create value. They're inspired by other people's success. They give freely. They operate from confidence. These aren't just attitudes or philosophies. They're neural patterns that shape your perception of reality. And your perception determines your actions. And your actions determine your results. Here's the paradox. Abundance mode actually creates abundance. When you operate from abundance, you take more risks because you don't feel like you're risking everything. You pursue more opportunities because you believe more will come. You build better relationships because you're not desperate or needy. You make better decisions because you're not operating from fear. And all of this leads to better outcomes, which reinforces the abundance pattern. Scarcity mode creates scarcity. When you operate from scarcity, you play it safe and miss opportunities. You hold back and limit your potential. You damage relationships by being transactional. You make fear-based decisions. And all of this leads to worse outcomes, which reinforces the scarcity pattern. So, the question is, how do you break out of scarcity mode if that's your current pattern? The most powerful technique I've found is gratitude practice. This might sound like New Age nonsense, but there's solid neuroscience behind it. Gratitude literally rewires your brain's attention system. When you practice gratitude regularly, you train your brain to scan for what's working rather than what's missing. You strengthen neural pathways associated with positive emotion. You weaken the default negativity bias that most brains have. Here's a specific practice. Every morning for 90 days, write down 10 things you're grateful for related to your financial life. Not generic things. Specific things. I'm grateful I have clean water. I'm grateful I have shelter. I'm grateful I can read. I'm grateful someone paid me yesterday. I'm grateful I have skills people value. Find 10 things every single day. The first week will be easy. The second week will be harder. By week 3, you'll be struggling to find things. But that's when the magic happens. When you're forced to search for things to be grateful for, you're actively rewiring your attention system. You're training your brain to notice abundance that was always there, but that you were filtering out. I resisted this practice for years because it seemed too simple to be effective. But when I finally committed to 90 days, the results were undeniable. My default mental state shifted from mild anxiety to mild optimism. I started noticing opportunities I had been blind to. My relationships improved because I wasn't operating from neediness. My business decisions improved because I wasn't making them from fear. The practice didn't change my circumstances. It changed how I perceived and responded to my circumstances, which changed my circumstances. Another critical abundance practice is generosity. This also sounds counterintuitive. If you don't have much, why would you give away what you have? But again, there's neurological wisdom here. Giving triggers the same reward circuits in your brain as receiving. It creates a sense of sufficiency. You can't give if you're in true scarcity. So the act of giving sends a signal to your brain. I have more than enough. I'm not talking about giving away money you need for rent. I'm talking about strategic generosity. Make introductions that help people. Share knowledge that took you years to acquire. Offer help without expecting anything in return. Create value for others before asking for value in return. This pattern of giving first establishes you as a source of abundance, which attracts abundance back to you. One of the wealthiest people I know has a rule. He tries to give away something valuable every single day. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's an introduction. Sometimes it's advice. Sometimes it's time. He says this practice is the foundation of his wealth. By giving constantly, he maintains an abundant state of mind. And from that state, he makes better decisions, pursues bigger opportunities, and attracts better people. Now, I want to address something that often gets ignored: the relationship between physical health and cognitive performance. Your brain is a physical organ. It requires specific nutrients, specific chemicals, and specific conditions to function optimally. If you're not taking care of your body, you cannot achieve billionaire-level cognitive performance. This is non-negotiable. Billionaires are obsessive about health optimization. They're not doing this because they're vain or because they have time to waste at the gym. They're doing it because they understand that their brain is their most valuable asset, and their brain's performance depends on their body's condition. Sleep is the foundation. Your brain consolidates memories, processes emotions, clears metabolic waste, and strengthens neural pathways during sleep. If you're consistently getting less than 7 hours of quality sleep, your cognitive performance is degraded by roughly 30%. You're literally operating with a damaged brain. No amount of willpower or motivation can compensate for this deficit. Billionaires prioritize sleep. They optimize their bedrooms for darkness, temperature, and quiet. They maintain consistent sleep schedules. They avoid screens before bed. They use tracking devices to monitor sleep quality. They treat sleep as a non-negotiable meeting with their own brain health. Exercise is the second foundation. When you exercise, your brain releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like fertilizer for neurons. It promotes neuroplasticity, improves memory, enhances mood, and increases cognitive performance. The data is overwhelming. People who exercise regularly have better cognitive function across every measurable dimension. You don't need to become an athlete. You just need to move your body vigorously for 30 minutes most days. Walk, run, bike, swim, lift weights, play sports, whatever you enjoy enough to maintain consistently. Nutrition is the third foundation. Your brain is built from the food you eat. If you're eating processed junk, you're building a low-quality brain. If you're eating nutrient-dense whole foods, you're building a high-quality brain. It's that simple. Billionaires often work with nutritionists to optimize their diets. They eat for performance, not just for taste. They understand which foods improve cognitive function and which foods impair it. They view food as fuel for their most valuable asset. The cognitive enhancement stack I personally use includes omega-3 fatty acids for brain cell membrane health, B vitamins for neurotransmitter production, magnesium for stress management, and intermittent fasting to promote autophagy and mental clarity. I'm not recommending you do exactly what I do, but I am recommending you take brain nutrition seriously. And then there's stress management. Chronic stress is one of the most destructive forces for cognitive performance. When you're constantly stressed, your body produces cortisol, which in high levels is neurotoxic. It literally damages your brain over time. It impairs memory formation, reduces neuroplasticity, and degrades decision-making ability. Billionaires manage stress aggressively. They meditate, they take vacations, they set boundaries, they delegate, they systematize. They refuse to operate in a chronic state of overwhelm because they know it destroys the organ they depend on most. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my 20s, I wore stress as a badge of honor. I bragged about working 80-hour weeks, surviving on 4 hours of sleep, and never taking time off. I thought I was being productive. I was actually being stupid. My cognitive performance was terrible. My decision-making was impaired. My memory was poor. I was running my brain into the ground. When I finally started prioritizing sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management, everything changed. My productivity increased dramatically, even though I was working fewer hours. My decisions improved. My creativity increased. My mood stabilized. I had more energy, more clarity, more mental horsepower. The time I spent on health optimization paid for itself many times over in improved performance. So if you're serious about upgrading your brain, start with the fundamentals. You can't neurohack your way around basic physiology. Sleep 8 hours. Exercise regularly. Eat well. Manage stress. These aren't optional extras. They're the foundation everything else is built on. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Sarah who applied these principles and completely transformed her life. Sarah was a middle manager at a mid-sized company, earning $75,000 per year. She was smart, hardworking, and frustrated. She felt trapped in her career and couldn't see a path to the kind of wealth she dreamed about. She had what I would call a classic employee brain, and she knew it was holding her back. She came across my work and decided to commit to the 90-day brain upgrade protocol. Here's what she did. First, she identified her poverty programming. She realized she had absorbed the belief that making more money required working more hours. She believed that wealthy people were either lucky or ruthless. She believed that asking for money was shameful. She believed that she wasn't the kind of person who built businesses. These beliefs were running her life from the background. Second, she started the pattern interrupt practice. Every time she caught herself thinking a limiting thought, she would literally say out loud, "That's poverty programming." Then she would deliberately replace it with a billionaire belief. Making more money requires leverage and value creation. Wealthy people solve valuable problems. Asking for fair compensation is respecting my value. I am exactly the kind of person who builds businesses. Third, she did the problem-spotting safari. She carried a notebook for 2 weeks and documented every problem, inefficiency, and frustration she noticed. She ended up with over 200 problems on her list. Fourth, she analyzed these problems through the billionaire filter. She asked, Which of these problems affect millions of people? Which are people actively looking for solutions to? Which could I actually solve? She narrowed her list to 5 high-potential problems. Fifth, she applied the 24-hour action rule. She picked one problem and took action within 24 hours. The problem she chose was that corporate employees waste enormous time searching for information scattered across different platforms. She knew this problem intimately from her own job. She spent her first 24 hours researching existing solutions and writing a basic product spec. Sixth, she practiced decision velocity. She gave herself 1 week to decide whether to pursue this as a side project. She decided yes. She gave herself 1 month to build a minimum viable product. She found a technical co-founder through her network, and they built a basic version in 4 weeks. Seventh, she used the failure immunity exercise. She expected her first version to fail, so failure didn't paralyze her. She launched it to 50 colleagues at her company and asked for brutal feedback. Most of it was negative, but 3 people said they would pay for an improved version. That was enough signal to continue. Eighth, she applied leverage thinking. Instead of trying to build the product herself, she found a developer who was willing to work for equity. Instead of trying to sell it herself, she recruited early users to become advocates. She built systems and automation wherever possible. Over 18 months, Sarah grew her side project into a SaaS company, serving 200 enterprise clients and generating $1.2 million in annual recurring revenue. She quit her corporate job. She hired a small team. She raised seed funding. And in year 3, she sold the company to a larger tech company for $14 million. Sarah's story illustrates something critical. She didn't have any special advantages. She didn't have technical skills. She didn't have startup experience. She didn't have wealthy connections. What she had was a willingness to upgrade her brain, to identify and interrupt her limiting patterns, to install new patterns through consistent practice, to take action despite fear, to learn from failure, to think in terms of leverage and value creation. The same transformation is available to you, but only if you do the work. And the work isn't passive. It's not enough to listen to this audiobook and nod along. You have to actively engage with the exercises. You have to practice the techniques. You have to rewire your neural pathways through repetition. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. So let me give you a concrete 90-day protocol that integrates everything we've covered. Week 1 through 3. Identify your poverty programming. Complete the belief archaeology exercise. Write down every limiting belief you have about money, risk, business, and your own capabilities. Then trace each belief back to its origin. Where did it come from? Who taught it to you? What experiences reinforced it? This creates awareness. Week 4 through 6. Install pattern interrupt protocols. Every time you catch a limiting belief in action, interrupt it immediately. Say, "That's poverty programming," out loud if possible. Then deliberately think a billionaire belief instead. Do this 50 times per day minimum. It will feel awkward at first. That's good. That's the feeling of your brain rewiring. Week 7 through 9. Complete the problem spotting safari. Document 100 problems that you notice in your daily life. Then analyze them for commercial potential. How many people have this problem? How painful is it? How much would they pay to solve it? Narrow your list to 5 high-potential opportunities. Week 10 through 12. Practice decision velocity. Make every decision under $100 in 10 seconds. Make every decision under $1,000 in 10 minutes. Make every decision under $10,000 in 1 day. Track your decisions and outcomes. You'll be shocked how rarely your fast decisions are wrong. Throughout all 12 weeks, maintain the foundation. Sleep 8 hours. Exercise 30 minutes 5 times per week. Eat nutrient-dense whole foods. Practice gratitude every morning. These aren't optional. They're the substrate everything else is built on. Week 13 through 16. Launch your first value creation experiment. Pick one problem from your list. Validate that people actually want it solved. Build or create the simplest possible solution. Test it with at least 10 people. Collect feedback. Iterate or pivot. Week 17 through 20. Practice failure immunity. Intentionally attempt things you expect to fail at. Seek rejection. Document what you learn from each failure. Celebrate failures as data collection. Rewire your emotional response to setbacks. Week 21 through 24. Expand your time horizon. Write a letter from your 80-year-old self. Visualize your life in 25 years. Make decisions based on long-term compound effects rather than short-term comfort. Plant seeds that won't bear fruit for years. Week 25 through 28. Upgrade your environment. Audit your peer group. Identify who influences your thinking. Join communities of people operating at a higher level. Consume content from people thinking bigger than you. Distance yourself from chronic complainers and small thinkers. Week 29 through 32. Install leverage thinking. Review every project and goal. Ask, how could I 10x this instead of doubling it? Identify opportunities for financial leverage, time leverage, network leverage, and technology leverage. Redesign your approach through a leverage lens. Week 33 through 36. Develop abundance operating system. Practice generosity daily. Give before receiving. Create value before capturing value. Document evidence of abundance in your life. Eliminate scarcity language from your vocabulary. Week 37 through 40. Build your billionaire network. Identify 150 people you want to connect with strategically. Provide value to them before asking for anything. Make introductions, share resources, offer help, build relationship capital systematically. Week 41 through 44. Optimize your health. Get blood work done. Track your sleep with a device. Hire a nutritionist. Establish an exercise routine you can maintain forever. Take brain health seriously as your most valuable asset. Week 45 through 48. Increase action bias. Apply the 24-hour rule to every idea. Launch minimum viable versions of everything. Stop planning and start testing. Treat business as a series of experiments rather than high-stakes gambles. Week 49 through 52. Develop failure immunity. Create your failure resume. Reframe past failures as education. Seek new failures intentionally. Build psychological scar tissue. Separate outcomes from identity. Week 53 through 56. Master decision velocity. Implement Bezos's two-way door framework. Use the 70% information rule. Set time limits on all decisions. Track your decisions, speed, and outcomes. Watch your momentum accelerate. Week 57 through 60. Focus on value creation. Become obsessed with solving valuable problems. Think in terms of impact before income. Ask, how can I create 10 times more value? Build systems that deliver value at scale. Week 61 through 64. Practice long-term thinking. Make decisions today that your 80-year-old self will thank you for. Start projects that take years to mature. Invest in relationships that compound over decades. Think in terms of legacy. Week 65 through 68. Embrace uncertainty. Practice making decisions with incomplete information. Get comfortable with ambiguity. Rewire your amygdala's fear response. Convert anxiety into excitement. Week 69 through 72. Focus on wealth, not income. Track your net worth monthly. Convert income into assets immediately. Build equity in businesses and property. Think like an owner, not a consumer. Week 73 through 76. Develop systems thinking. Build processes that don't depend on you. Create leverage through automation. Design businesses that scale without proportional effort. Think in terms of systems, not tasks. Week 77 through 80. Strengthen your future self-connection. Write letters to and from your future self. Make decisions as if your 80-year-old is watching. Visualize compound effects over decades. Delay gratification strategically. Week 81 through 84. Eliminate employee mindset. Practice autonomous decision-making. Take responsibility for outcomes. Stop waiting for permission. Think like an owner in every situation. Week 85 through 88. Master execution. Close the gap between thinking and doing. Launch projects, not plans. Move from intention to action immediately. Build momentum through consistent progress. Week 89 through 90. Integrate everything. Review your 90-day transformation. Document the changes in your thinking. Measure the results in your life. Commit to maintaining these patterns permanently. Now let me give you something incredibly valuable. Most transformation programs fail because they don't address the relapse problem. You'll make progress for a few weeks, then life will get stressful. Something will trigger your old patterns, and you'll slide backwards. This is normal. This is predictable. And this is preventable if you have the right protocols in place. Let me tell you about Marcus. He was a software developer who went through this entire brain upgrade process. For the first 60 days, he was on fire. He identified his limiting beliefs, practiced pattern interrupts religiously, started 2 side projects, and felt like a completely different person. His confidence was through the roof. His decision-making speed had tripled. He was seeing opportunities everywhere. Then his father got sick. Marcus had to fly home, deal with family stress, and put his transformation on hold for 2 weeks. When he came back, something had changed. He tried to pick up where he left off, but the momentum was gone. The practices felt forced. The old patterns crept back in. Within a month, he was back to his old self. Maybe even worse, because now he felt like a failure on top of everything else. This is what I call the relapse trap, and it catches 90% of people who attempt personal transformation. But it didn't have to catch Marcus. If he had known about relapse-proofing protocols, he could have navigated that crisis without losing his progress. So, here's what you need to understand about relapse. Your old neural patterns don't disappear when you build new ones. They're still there, lying dormant, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. Stress, fatigue, emotional upheaval. These are all triggers that can flip you back into old patterns before you even realize what's happening. The key to relapse proofing is creating what I call pattern anchors. These are non-negotiable daily practices that keep your new patterns active even when life gets chaotic, even when you don't feel like it, Even when you're stressed or tired or overwhelmed, you do these practices no matter what because they're your insurance policy against sliding backwards. Here are the 5 essential pattern anchors. Every single morning, before you do anything else, you're going to complete what I call the Billionaire Brain Boot sequence. It takes exactly 7 minutes. No exceptions, no days off. 7 minutes every morning for the rest of your life. Minute 1. Gratitude priming. Open your eyes and immediately think of 3 things you're grateful for related to wealth, opportunity, or capability. Not generic gratitude, specific gratitude. I'm grateful I can think clearly. I'm grateful someone paid me yesterday. I'm grateful I have skills that create value. This primes your brain for abundance mode before you even get out of bed. Minute 2. Identity reinforcement. Say out loud, I am a person who creates massive value and builds significant wealth. You need to hear yourself say this. Your brain responds differently to spoken words than to thoughts. Say it with conviction, even if you don't believe it yet. You're not lying. You're installing. Minute 3. Pattern interrupt check. Scan your thoughts for any poverty programming that showed up overnight. Dreams sometimes reactivate old patterns. If you catch any limiting beliefs, interrupt them immediately. Say out loud, that's poverty programming, not reality. Replace with a billionaire belief. Minute 4. Decision velocity practice. Make 3 fast decisions about your day. What's your number 1 priority? What's the most leveraged action you can take? What opportunity will you pursue? 10 seconds per decision. This keeps your decision-making circuits sharp. Minute 5. Visualization anchor. Close your eyes and see yourself as the person worth $100 million. See yourself making a high-stakes decision with complete calm. See yourself spotting a $10 million opportunity. 5 seconds per image. This reinforces your new neural patterns. Minute 6. Value creation intention. Ask yourself, how will I create value for someone today? Identify one specific way you'll solve a problem, fill a need, or improve someone's situation. This keeps you focused on value creation instead of money extraction. Minute 7. Leverage question. Ask yourself, what's the most leveraged thing I could do today? Identify the action that would create the most value with the least personal effort. This keeps your brain scanning for multiplication instead of addition. 7 minutes. Every morning. Non-negotiable. This is your pattern anchor. As long as you do this, your new patterns stay active. Skip it for 3 days and you'll start sliding. Skip it for a week and you'll be back where you started. But morning practice isn't enough. You also need crisis protocols for when life hits you hard. Because it will. You'll face setbacks. You'll encounter stress. You'll have days when everything goes wrong. And those are the moments when your old patterns will try to reassert themselves. Here's your crisis protocol. When you notice yourself sliding into old patterns, when you catch yourself catastrophizing risk or thinking in scarcity or seeking safety over opportunity, you immediately deploy the emergency pattern interrupt sequence. Step 1. Pause everything. Stop what you're doing. If you're in a conversation, excuse yourself. If you're working, step away from your desk. You need to break state immediately. Step 2. Physical reset. Do 20 jumping jacks or 10 push-ups or run up and down stairs for 30 seconds. This interrupts the stress response in your body and gives your prefrontal cortex a chance to come back online. Step 3. Recall your why. Remember why you started this transformation. Visualize what your life will look like if you maintain these new patterns. Visualize what your life will look like if you slide back to your old patterns. Feel the contrast. Step 4. Recommit out loud. Say, I am upgrading my brain. I am installing billionaire patterns. This temporary stress will not derail my transformation. Hear yourself say it. Let your ears send that message back to your brain. Step 5. Take one leveraged action. Do something immediately that aligns with your new patterns. Make one fast decision. Spot one opportunity. Interrupt one limiting belief. Take one step toward value creation. This reactivates your new neural pathways and proves to yourself that you're still in control. This entire crisis protocol takes less than 5 minutes, but it will save your transformation. Marcus didn't have this protocol. He let stress pull him back into old patterns without even realizing it was happening. If he had deployed this sequence the moment he felt himself sliding, he would have maintained his progress through the crisis. Now let's talk about micro-challenges. These are small, daily practices designed to strengthen specific neural pathways. You're going to rotate through different micro-challenges throughout your 90-day transformation. Each one targets a specific billionaire brain pattern. Day 1. Micro-challenge. The poverty phrase purge. Today, you're going to catch yourself every single time you use scarcity language. Phrases like, I can't afford that. I don't have time for that. That's too expensive. I wish I could, but. Every time you catch yourself, stop mid-sentence if necessary and reframe using abundance language. I'm choosing to allocate my resources differently. I'm prioritizing other opportunities right now. That's not my highest value use of capital. Track how many times you catch and correct yourself. Aim for at least 10. Day 2. Micro-challenge, the speed decision sprint. Set a timer for 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, you're going to make 30 decisions. They can be small. What to eat for lunch? Which email to respond to first? What book to read next? Which project to prioritize? The content matters less than the speed. You're training your brain to decide quickly without agonizing. 30 decisions in 10 minutes means you have 20 seconds per decision. Go. Day 3, micro-challenge, the opportunity scan. For the entire day, you're going to carry a notebook or use your phone. Every single time you notice a problem, an inefficiency, or a frustration, you write it down. Don't filter. Don't judge. Just observe and record. Your goal is 50 problems by the end of the day. This trains your brain to see opportunities instead of accepting the status quo. Day 4. Micro-challenge, the rejection hunt. Your goal today is to get rejected 3 times. Ask for something you don't expect to receive. A discount at a store, a meeting with someone impressive, a favor from a stranger. The goal isn't to succeed. The goal is to hear no and practice staying emotionally neutral. Each rejection is a small dose of failure immunity vaccine. Day 5 micro-challenge, the generosity experiment. Today, you're going to give away value to 5 people without expecting anything in return. Share a useful article. Make an introduction. Offer advice. Solve a small problem. The act of giving primes your brain for abundance mode and establishes you as a source of value. Day 6, micro-challenge, the leverage audit. Look at your calendar for tomorrow. Identify every activity you have planned. For each one, ask, could I get the same result with less personal effort? Could you delegate it, automate it, eliminate it, hire someone? Use technology. Document at least 5 opportunities to introduce leverage into your life. Day 7. Micro Challenge, the future self letter. Write a letter from your 80-year-old self to your current self. What does that wise, experienced version of you want you to know? What do they wish you had done? What risks do they wish you had taken? What opportunities do they wish you had pursued? Read this letter whenever you feel yourself sliding into short-term thinking. Day 8. Micro Challenge, the Billionaire Hour. Block 1 hour on your calendar. During this hour, you're going to think exclusively about 10x goals. Not 2x goals, 10x goals. If you wanted to 10x your income, what would you have to do? If you wanted to 10x your impact, what would you have to create? If you wanted to 10x your leverage, what would you have to build? Write down every idea, no matter how unrealistic it seems. Day 9. Micro Challenge, the Pattern Interrupt Marathon. Today, you're going to catch and interrupt 50 limiting beliefs. Yes, 50. This seems impossible until you realize how many limiting thoughts run through your head every single day. Every time you notice one, interrupt it out loud if possible. That's poverty programming. Then replace it with a billionaire belief. Track all 50 in a document. Day 10, Micro Challenge, the Value Creation Brainstorm. Set a timer for 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, you're going to generate 50 ideas for creating value. Products you could build, services you could offer, problems you could solve, content you could create, businesses you could start. Quantity over quality, no filtering, just generation. This trains your brain to see value creation possibilities everywhere. Day 11. Micro Challenge, the Decision Velocity Journal. Today, you're going to document every single decision you make and how long it took you. Morning routine decisions, work decisions, communication decisions, purchase decisions. By the end of the day, you should have at least 30 decisions logged with timestamps. Then, analyze. Which decisions took way too long for their stakes? Tomorrow, you'll make those decisions faster. Day 12. Micro Challenge, the Network Value Assessment. List the 15 people you spend the most time with. For each person, write down, what's their approximate net worth? What's their attitude toward money? What's their risk tolerance? What's their time horizon for thinking? Are they thinking in weeks, months, years, or decades? This gives you a clear picture of your current mental environment. Then identify 5 people you should spend more time with and 5 you should spend less time with. Day 13. Micro Challenge, the Fear Ladder. List 10 things that scare you related to wealth building. Rank them from least scary to most scary. Today, you're going to do the least scary thing on your list. Tomorrow, you'll do the next one. By day 23, you'll do the scariest thing. This is systematic fear desensitization. Day 14. Micro Challenge, the Wealthy Person Interview. Today, you're going to reach out to someone who earns or is worth at least 10 times more than you. Ask them for 15 minutes of their time. Ask them these specific questions. What's the biggest mental shift you made that changed your financial trajectory? What belief did you have to let go of? What belief did you have to adopt? What do you know now that you wish you had known 20 years ago? Document their answers. Day 15. Micro Challenge, the Time Horizon Expansion. Take your biggest current goal. Now ask yourself, if I had to wait 10 years to achieve this goal but could make it 10 times bigger, what would I do differently? This question forces your brain out of short-term thinking and into long-term strategic thinking. Document your insights. Day 16. Micro Challenge, the Asset Conversion Practice. Today, every time you spend money on anything, you're going to calculate the opportunity cost. If you spend $50 on dinner, that's $50 that can't compound into wealth. At an 8% annual return over 30 years, that $50 would become $500. Is the dinner worth 500 future dollars? This exercise isn't about never spending. It's about training your brain to think in terms of assets versus liabilities. Day 17 Micro Challenge, the delegation experiment. Today, you're going to delegate or outsource one task that you normally do yourself. It could be cleaning, errands, research, data entry, whatever. The task should take you at least 1 hour. You're going to pay someone else to do it, even if you could do it yourself for free. This trains your brain to value your time properly and to think in terms of leverage. Day 18. Micro Challenge, the pattern recognition sprint. Find 5 successful businesses or investors. Study their strategies. Identify patterns. What do they have in common? What principles do they all follow? What opportunities do they all pursue? What risks do they all avoid? Document at least 10 patterns you notice. This trains your brain's pattern recognition circuits. Day 19 Micro Challenge, the offer creation practice. Today, you're going to create an offer for a product or service that doesn't exist yet. Define the problem it solves. Define who it's for. Define the value proposition. Define the price point. Write the sales page. You're not actually building anything today. You're just practicing the skill of packaging value into offers. This is one of the most valuable skills in wealth creation. Day 20 Micro Challenge, the Assumption Challenge. Write down 10 assumptions you have about your industry, your market, your customers, or your capabilities. For each assumption, ask, what if this is completely wrong? What would become possible if the opposite were true? This exercise helps you identify invisible constraints that are limiting your thinking. Day 21. Micro Challenge, the mini launch. Today, you're going to launch something, anything. A post on social media, a conversation with a potential client, an experiment, a minimum viable version of an idea. Something that didn't exist yesterday will exist today because you created it. This trains your bias toward action and your comfort with launching before you're ready. These first 21 days are critical. This is when your new neural pathways are most fragile. This is when you're most likely to quit. This is when your old patterns will fight hardest to reassert themselves. But if you complete these 21 micro challenges, if you do your 7-minute morning practice every day, if you deploy your crisis protocol when needed, you'll make it past the first threshold. And here's what you need to know about that threshold. Neuroscience research shows that after 21 days of consistent practice, your brain begins treating a new behavior as familiar rather than foreign. The resistance decreases. The practice feels less forced. You're over the first hump, but you're not done. You have 69 more days. And each phase of this 90-day transformation has different challenges and different requirements. Days 22 through 42 are about integration. You've installed some new patterns. Now you need to integrate them into your actual life. This is where most people stumble. They do the exercises in isolation, but they don't apply the thinking to their real decisions, real opportunities, real challenges. So during this phase, every micro-challenge is about application, taking what you've learned and using it in actual situations with actual stakes. Day 22. Micro-challenge, The real decision analysis. Take a real decision you're currently facing, something with actual stakes. Walk through the Billionaire Brain Decision Framework. Is this a one-way door or two-way door? Do I have 70% of the information I need? What's the expected value of each option? What would I regret not doing? Make the decision using this framework and document the process. Day 23. Micro Challenge, the scary fear ladder item. Remember that fear ladder from day 13? Today, you're doing the scariest thing on that list. The thing that makes your stomach clench when you think about it. You've had 10 days to prepare psychologically. Now, you execute. Document how you feel before, during, and after. This is a major milestone in your failure immunity development. Day 24. Micro Challenge, the opportunity pitch. Take one of the problems you identified in your opportunity scans. Create a solution, package it into a pitch, then pitch it to someone who could actually buy it, fund it, or partner with you. You might succeed, you might fail. Either way, you're training your execution circuits and your comfort with putting your ideas into the world before they're perfect. Day 25. Micro Challenge, the Abundance Evidence Journal. Today, you're going to document 30 pieces of evidence that you live in an abundant universe, not generic things. Specific examples from your own life. Times money showed up unexpectedly. Times opportunities appeared from nowhere. Times people helped you for no reason. Times things worked out even though you didn't know how they would. This creates a reference library your brain can access when scarcity thinking tries to take over. Day 26 Micro Challenge, the Relationship Value Delivery. Pick one person in your network who you want to build a stronger relationship with. Someone who thinks bigger than you do. Today, you're going to deliver value to them without asking for anything. Solve a problem they have. Make an introduction that helps them. Share an insight that's useful to them. Send them an opportunity. This is how billionaires build networks. They give before they receive. Day 27. Micro Challenge, the Leverage Multiplication. Take one project or goal you're currently pursuing. Redesign it with 10 times more leverage. If you were going to deliver it to 100 people instead of 10, how would you have to change it? If you were going to charge $10,000 instead of $1,000, how would you have to improve it? If you were going to make it passive instead of active, what would you have to build? Document your redesign. Day 28 Micro Challenge, the Failure Resume Update. Add 3 more entries to your failure resume from recent failures. Maybe they're small. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work. Maybe you got rejected. Maybe you made a mistake. Document what happened and what you learned. This reinforces the pattern that failure is data, not identity. Day 29 Micro Challenge, the Time Blocking Transformation. Look at your calendar for next week. Identify all the low-leverage activities, all the things that keep you busy but don't create value, all the meetings that don't need to happen, all the tasks that could be delegated or eliminated. Then ruthlessly cut or delegate 50% of them. Free up at least 10 hours for high-leverage activities. This might be uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Day 30 Micro Challenge, the Wealth versus Income Check. Calculate your net worth today. Assets minus liabilities. Then look at your spending over the last 30 days. How much money moved from your asset column to your liability column? How much money went into appreciating assets? How much went into depreciating assets or consumption? Create a plan to shift the ratio. This keeps you focused on building wealth, not just earning income. By day 30, you should be noticing significant changes. Your decision-making speed has increased. You're spotting opportunities you would have missed before. Your default response to challenges is different. You're thinking in terms of leverage automatically. Your fear of failure has decreased noticeably. You're making progress on actual projects instead of just thinking about them. But here's where it gets interesting. Around day 30 to 40, many people hit what I call the doubt valley. They've made progress, but they haven't yet seen massive results. Their bank account hasn't changed dramatically. They haven't closed a huge deal. They haven't built a successful business. And a voice in their head starts saying, "This isn't working. You're wasting your time. You should quit." This is the most dangerous phase of transformation. More people quit between day 30 and day 40 than at any other point. And they quit right before the breakthrough. Because here's what they don't understand. Neural rewiring happens first. Results happen second. There's always a lag. You're installing new patterns. Those patterns are getting stronger, but they haven't yet had time to change your external circumstances. That takes longer. You need to trust the process even when you don't see immediate results. You need to maintain the practice even when your bank account hasn't changed yet. This is where your future self-connection becomes critical. Your 80-year-old self is watching you right now. They're watching you face doubt. They're watching you decide whether to persist or quit. What do they want you to do? They want you to keep going. Because they can see what you can't see yet. They can see what happens if you maintain these patterns for 6 months, for a year, for 5 years. They can see the compound effect. They know that quitting at day 35 would be the biggest mistake you could make. So here's your Doubt Valley protocol. When you hit that moment of questioning, when you wonder if this is all just nonsense and you should go back to your old ways, you're going to run this sequence. First, review your day 1 baseline. Go back to the beginning of this transformation and read what you wrote about your thinking patterns, your beliefs, your behavior. Compare that to who you are now. The changes are real. You're already different. Your brain has already upgraded. That's not nothing. Second, review your evidence. Look at the decisions you've made in the last 30 days. Look at the actions you've taken. Look at the projects you've started. Look at the fears you've faced. Look at the patterns you've interrupted. Look at the value you've created. You've done more in 30 days than most people do in a year. That's not nothing. Third, extend your time horizon. You've been doing this for 30 days. You need to do it for 90 days to see the full neural rewiring. Then you need to maintain it for 6 months to see significant external results. Then you need to maintain it for years to see life-changing outcomes. You're not even halfway through the first phase. Judging the effectiveness of this process at day 30 is like judging a tree's health 3 weeks after planting the seed. Fourth, make a recommitment decision. Decide right now, consciously and deliberately, that you will continue this process through day 90 no matter what. No matter if you see results, no matter if you feel doubt, no matter if you get busy or stressed or tired, you committed to 90 days. That commitment is non-negotiable. Decide again. Fifth, take immediate action. Do something right now that aligns with your new patterns. Make a fast decision. Spot an opportunity. Interrupt a limiting belief. Create value for someone. This proves to yourself that you're still in control and the patterns are still active. If you deploy this Doubt Valley protocol, you'll push through to day 40. And if you make it to day 40, you'll almost certainly make it to day 90. Because after day 40, the momentum is real. The patterns are solidifying. The resistance is decreasing. You're entering the consolidation phase. Days 43 through 63 are about consolidation and acceleration. Your new patterns are becoming automatic. Now you can start pushing harder. Now you can take bigger risks. Now you can pursue more ambitious goals. Day 43 Micro Challenge, the Quantum Leap Project. Design a project that, if successful, would 10x your current trajectory. Not double it. 10x it. Something that seems unrealistic. Something that makes you nervous. Something that requires leverage and value creation at scale. You're not necessarily going to execute this project today, but you're going to design it in detail. What would it take? Who would you need? What would you build? How would you monetize it? This stretches your brain to think bigger. Day 44. Micro Challenge, the network upgrade push. Reach out to 5 people who are operating at a higher level than you. People who make you slightly nervous to contact. People you admire. People who could teach you. Ask for 15 minutes of their time. Offer value first if possible. But reach out. Half won't respond. That's fine. The ones who do respond will change your life. This is how you upgrade your environment. Day 45. Micro Challenge, the systematic delegation. Today, you're going to create systems and processes for 3 recurring tasks in your life or business. Document step by step how to do these tasks. Then delegate or outsource them. This frees up your time for higher leverage activities and trains you to think in terms of systems rather than personal effort. Day 46, Micro Challenge, the premium pricing experiment. Take something you offer, whether it's a service, a product, or your time. Double the price. Then find someone willing to pay the new price. This challenges your beliefs about value and pricing. It trains your brain to charge what you're worth rather than what feels safe. Many people discover that raising prices actually increases demand because it signals higher value. Day 47. Micro Challenge, the Opportunity Maximizer. Look at your last 5 opportunities or projects. For each one, ask, how could I have made this 10 times more valuable with the same effort? How could I have served 10 times more people? How could I have captured 10 times more value? How could I have used 10 times more leverage? Document your analysis. These insights will change how you approach your next 5 opportunities. Day 48. Micro Challenge, the Intellectual Property Creation. Today, you're going to create 1 piece of intellectual property. A piece of content. A process. A framework. A system. Something you create once, but that generates value repeatedly. This could be a video, an article, a course outline, a software tool, whatever. The medium matters less than the practice of creating leverage through intellectual property. Day 49. Micro Challenge, the strategic no. Today, you're going to say no to 3 opportunities that would have excited you 60 days ago. Good opportunities, but not great opportunities. This trains your discernment. It teaches you to protect your time and attention for only the highest leverage activities. Every yes to something good is a no to something great. Day 50. Micro Challenge, the Mastermind Formation. Reach out to 3 people who are pursuing similar goals. Propose a monthly mastermind where you share challenges, insights, and opportunities. This creates accountability and multiplies your collective intelligence. Billionaires don't operate in isolation. They operate in networks of other high performers who challenge and support each other. Day 51 through 60. The momentum multiplication phase. For these 10 days, you're going to complete what I call the momentum protocol. This is an intensive burst designed to create massive forward movement. Each day, you will complete 5 specific tasks: a value creation task, a relationship building task, a learning task, a decision task, a pattern reinforcement task. Document all 5 tasks every day for 10 days straight. By day 60, you'll have created 50 discrete pieces of forward momentum. Here's what this looks like in practice. Day 51. Value creation task. Write and publish one piece of content that solves a problem for your target audience. Relationship building task. Deliver value to one person in your network without asking for anything. Learning task. Study one successful person's strategy and document 3 insights. Decision task. Make one significant decision that you've been avoiding. Pattern reinforcement. Task. Interrupt 10 limiting beliefs and replace them with billionaire beliefs. Day 52, you repeat the structure, but with different specific tasks. Value creation task. Reach out to 3 potential clients or customers and make offers. Relationship building task. Introduce 2 people who could create value for each other. Learning task. Read about one form of leverage you haven't explored yet and identify how you could apply it. Decision task. Eliminate one commitment that's not serving you. Pattern reinforcement task. Practice making 10 fast decisions in 10 minutes. You continue this pattern through day 60. By the end of this phase, you'll have created value 50 times, built 50 relationship touches, generated 50 insights, made 50 decisions, reinforced your patterns 500 times. This is acceleration. This is momentum. This is when transformation becomes undeniable. And here's what happens during this phase. Your external reality starts shifting. People notice you're different. Opportunities start appearing. Conversations lead to connections. Connections lead to collaborations. Collaborations lead to value creation. Value creation leads to wealth. The lag between internal change and external results begins to close. This is when people start asking you what you're doing differently. This is when your income starts increasing. This is when projects start succeeding. This is when the compound effect of your new thinking patterns becomes visible in the real world. But you're not done yet. You still have 30 days remaining. And these final 30 days are about integration and permanence. You're going to install the patterns so deeply that they become your new normal. So deeply that you can't go back even if you wanted to. Days 61 through 90 are about creating what I call neural permanence. This is when temporary patterns become permanent structures. This is when conscious practice becomes unconscious competence. This is when you stop thinking about thinking differently and you just think differently. Day 61. Micro Challenge, the transformation documentation. Write a detailed account of your 90-day journey so far. What patterns have you changed? What beliefs have you installed? What actions have you taken? What results have you created? What's different about how you think, how you decide, how you see opportunity? This documentation serves 2 purposes. It shows you how far you've come, and it becomes a resource you can return to if you ever feel yourself sliding backwards. Day 62. Micro Challenge, the teaching practice. Take one concept from this transformation and teach it to someone else. Teaching forces you to clarify your understanding. It reinforces your neural pathways. It positions you as a source of value. And it often leads to unexpected opportunities. Day 63, Micro Challenge, the Metrics Review. Pull up your financial metrics, income, net worth, revenue, whatever's relevant. Compare today's numbers to day one's numbers. Even if the changes are small, acknowledge them. Even if they're not as dramatic as you wanted, recognize that they're directionally correct. Your thinking changed first. Your results are changing second. The trajectory is what matters. Day 64 through 70, the stress test phase. For one full week, you're going to intentionally expose yourself to conditions that would normally trigger your old patterns. Take on more than usual. Face rejection intentionally. Make high-stakes decisions. Put yourself in situations that activate stress. Then observe how you respond. Are your new patterns holding under pressure? Are you defaulting to old patterns when challenged? This week is about testing the resilience of your neural rewiring. Day 71. Micro Challenge, the course correction. Based on your stress test week, identify any areas where your old patterns are still strong. Where did you struggle? When did you revert to fear-based thinking or scarcity mindset or decision paralysis? These are your weak points. For the next week, you're going to target these specific weak points with intensive pattern work. Day 72 through 78, the Weak Point Intensive. Each day, you're going to complete 50 pattern interrupts, specifically targeting your identified weak points. If decision paralysis is your weakness, you're making 50 fast decisions per day. If scarcity thinking is your weakness, you're documenting 50 examples of abundance per day. If fear of rejection is your weakness, you're seeking 50 micro-rejections per day. This is targeted neural rewiring. Day 79 Micro Challenge, the Identity Update. Write a new self-concept statement. Who are you now? What do you believe about yourself? What are you capable of? How do you think about money, opportunity, risk, and value? This statement should reflect your new neural reality. Read this statement every morning for the next 12 days. Day 80. Micro Challenge, the Future Protocol Design. You're about to complete this 90-day transformation. But transformation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. Today, you're going to design your maintenance protocol. What daily practices will you maintain forever? What weekly practices? What monthly practices? How will you prevent relapse? How will you continue growing? Document your protocol in detail. Day 81 through 85, the implementation sprint. For 5 days straight, you're going to work on one project that embodies everything you've learned. A project that creates value, that uses leverage, that serves many people, that generates wealth, that requires fast decisions, that involves calculated risk, that stretches your capabilities. Pour everything you've got into this project for 5 days. Ship it on day 85, day 86 Micro Challenge, the Network Gratitude. Reach out to 10 people who have influenced your transformation, people who helped you, people who inspired you, people who believed in you, people who challenged you. Thank them specifically. Tell them what they contributed. Tell them what it meant. This reinforces your network and establishes you as someone who recognizes and appreciates value. Day 87. Micro Challenge, the Legacy Definition. Imagine yourself at age 80 looking back at your life. What do you want to have built? What impact do you want to have made? What will you be most proud of? Who will you have helped? What will you be remembered for? Write your legacy statement. This becomes your North Star for all future decisions. Day 88. Micro Challenge, the celebration practice. You've been doing this for 88 days straight. You've practiced thousands of times. You've completed dozens of challenges. You've rewired your brain. This is extraordinary. Today, you're going to celebrate. Do something that honors the work you've done. This teaches your brain. That transformation is rewarding, which makes future transformation easier. Day 89. Micro Challenge, the integration review. Review all 90 days. Look at every challenge you completed, every pattern you interrupted, every action you took, every decision you made, every fear you faced. Acknowledge how much you've done. Recognize how much you've changed. Appreciate how far you've come. This comprehensive review solidifies everything you've learned. Day 90 Micro Challenge, the commitment renewal. Today is both an ending and a beginning. You're completing the 90-day intensive transformation protocol, but you're beginning the lifelong journey of maintaining and expanding these patterns. Today, you make a new commitment, not to 90 days, to forever. You commit to never going back to your old patterns. You commit to continuing to grow, to evolve, to upgrade. You commit to thinking like a billionaire for the rest of your life. Write this commitment. Sign it. Date it. Keep it somewhere you'll see it regularly. This is the 90-day protocol. But here's what most people will do. They'll listen to this audiobook. They'll feel inspired. They'll intend to do the exercises. And then they'll slip back into their old patterns within a week. They'll tell themselves they're too busy. They'll do it later. It's not the right time. And nothing will change. Don't be that person. Make a commitment right now. Not to perfection, not to following this protocol flawlessly, but to actually engaging with it, to doing at least 70% of what's outlined here, to treating this as a real transformation process, not just interesting information, because information without application is worthless. You already knew most of what I've shared in this audiobook at some level. You knew that mindset matters. You knew that thinking differently creates different results. You knew that wealthy people have different mental patterns. But knowing doesn't change anything. Only doing changes things. The question is not whether you understand these concepts. The question is whether you'll implement them. Whether you'll do the uncomfortable work of identifying your limiting beliefs. Whether you'll practice pattern interrupts 50 times per day, even when it feels stupid. Whether you'll document 100 problems, even though your brain resists. Whether you'll make fast decisions, even though you're afraid of being wrong. Whether you'll seek rejection, even though it hurts. Whether you'll give generously, even though you feel scarcity. Whether you'll take action within 24 hours, even though you don't feel ready. Let me tell you about 3 more people who applied these principles and the different paths they took. First, there's David. David was a corporate lawyer making $250,000 per year. Good income. Impressive to most people. But David felt trapped. He worked 80 hours per week. He had no time for his family. He had no creative freedom. He was trading his life for money, and the exchange rate wasn't in his favor. David went through the 90-day protocol. In the first month, he didn't quit his job. He didn't make any dramatic changes. He just started thinking differently. He practiced the pattern interrupts. He scanned for opportunities. He expanded his time horizon. He built his failure immunity. And something shifted. He realized that he had been operating from a scarcity mindset about money. He thought he needed to keep his high-paying job because he couldn't replicate that income elsewhere. But that belief was keeping him trapped. So he started testing it. He began consulting on the side, small projects, low commitment, just to see if he could create value outside the corporate structure. His first client paid him $5,000 for work that took him 10 hours. That's $500 per hour, more than he made at his law firm when you calculated hourly rates. This data point challenged his scarcity belief. Maybe he didn't need the firm. Maybe his skills were valuable in the marketplace. Maybe he had options he hadn't seen before. Over the next 6 months, David built his consulting practice while still working his corporate job. He applied leverage thinking. Instead of trading time for money, he created templates and systems that allowed him to serve clients more efficiently. He raised his prices. He turned away low-value clients. He focused exclusively on high-leverage opportunities. By month 9, his consulting income exceeded his corporate salary. He gave notice at the firm. His colleagues thought he was insane. Walking away from a $250,000 salary, giving up the prestige, abandoning the partnership track. They saw risk. David saw opportunity. 3 years later, David's consulting practice generates over $2 million per year in revenue. He works 30 hours per week. He takes 3 months off annually. He has freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. His net worth has grown more in 3 years than it did in the previous 15 years of corporate law. The only thing that changed was his brain. Then there's Patricia. Patricia was a marketing manager at a consumer goods company. She was good at her job, but bored. She had ideas for products she wanted to create, problems she wanted to solve. But she had never started anything entrepreneurial. She was paralyzed by fear of failure and uncertainty about whether she could succeed. Patricia went through the 90-day protocol with a specific focus on failure immunity. She did the rejection challenge aggressively. She sought out 30 rejections in 30 days, then did it again the next month. She failed at small ventures intentionally. She pitched ideas that she expected would be rejected. She put herself in uncomfortable situations repeatedly. And something remarkable happened. Her fear disappeared, not gradually, suddenly. Around day 45, she realized that rejection didn't hurt anymore. Failure didn't scare her. The worst-case scenarios she had been catastrophizing were actually just mildly disappointing at worst. She had inoculated herself against the psychological threats that had been holding her back. With her newfound fearlessness, Patricia launched her first product. A skincare line targeted at a specific demographic she understood well. She had no experience in skincare, no connections in the industry, no special advantages. Just an idea and the willingness to figure it out through experimentation. Her first product launch failed. She sold 47 units, lost $3,000. Old Patricia would have quit. New Patricia saw data. The feedback told her the price point was wrong. The packaging was confusing. The messaging wasn't clear. She adjusted and relaunched. Second version, sold 400 units, made a small profit, more data, more insights, more adjustments. Third version, sold 3,000 units, real revenue, real validation. Fourth version, sold 15,000 units. She quit her job. 5 years later, Patricia's skincare company does over $20 million in annual revenue. She has expanded to 12 products. She sells in over 500 retail locations. She recently raised Series A funding to accelerate growth. None of this would have happened if she hadn't rewired her brain to be immune to failure. The fear of failure is what stops most potential entrepreneurs before they ever start. Patricia eliminated that fear through systematic desensitization. Then everything became possible. And finally, there's Robert. Robert was already successful by conventional standards. He had built and sold a software company for $8 million. He was in his early 40s with enough money to retire if he wanted to. But something was missing. He felt like he was playing small, like he had capabilities he wasn't using, like there was a bigger game he should be playing but couldn't quite see. Robert went through the 90-day protocol with a focus on thinking bigger. He did the 10X exercises religiously. He surrounded himself with people thinking at a different scale. He studied billionaires obsessively. He rewired his brain to see billion-dollar opportunities instead of million-dollar opportunities. The shift in his thinking was profound. Before the protocol, he would evaluate ideas based on whether they could generate a few million in revenue. After the protocol, he automatically filtered for ideas that could reach hundreds of millions of people and generate hundreds of millions in revenue. His brain had upgraded to scan for a different order of magnitude. This new thinking led him to identify an opportunity in the education technology space. Instead of building another nice software product that might generate 10 million per year, he designed a platform that could serve 50 million students globally and generate $1 billion in revenue. The scope was terrifying. The ambition felt almost delusional. But his rewired brain saw it as simply the logical application of leverage and scale to a massive problem. Robert spent 2 years building this platform. He raised $60 million in venture capital funding. He assembled a team of 100 people. He launched in 20 countries simultaneously. The execution was messy. There were failures and pivots and moments of doubt. But his brain had been rewired to handle uncertainty and fear. He persisted. Today, 7 years after completing the 90-day protocol, Robert's education platform serves over 30 million students in 40 countries. The company is valued at over $3 billion. Robert's personal net worth is over $400 million. But more importantly, he's operating at the level he always suspected he was capable of. His brain upgrade unlocked potential that was always there, but had been constrained by limited thinking. These 3 stories illustrate an important point. The billionaire brain upgrade isn't about following one specific path. David applied it to escape corporate constraints and build a lifestyle business. Patricia applied it to overcome fear and build a product company. Robert applied it to think bigger and build a unicorn. The specifics of their journeys were completely different, but the neural patterns they installed were the same. They all learned to interrupt poverty programming. They all developed decision velocity. They all became immune to failure. They all thought in terms of leverage. They all expanded their time horizons. They all practiced abundance thinking. They all saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. And they all took action instead of overthinking. You can apply these same patterns to whatever path is right for you. The upgrade isn't prescriptive about what you should build or how you should make money. It's prescriptive about how you should think. And once your thinking changes, the right opportunities for you will become obvious. Now let me address something important. What happens after day 90? Do you just stop practicing and hope the patterns stick? Absolutely not. Day 90 isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new phase. The first 90 days are about intensive installation. You're deliberately and consciously rewiring your brain through focused practice. It's hard work. It requires discipline. It demands consistency. But after 90 days, something shifts. The patterns start to feel natural. The practices become habits. The new thinking becomes your default. Then you move into the maintenance and expansion phase. This phase lasts forever, but it requires much less intensive effort because the foundation is already built. You're no longer trying to install new patterns. You're simply maintaining and strengthening existing patterns while continuing to evolve. Here's what the maintenance phase looks like practically. You keep doing the 7-minute morning billionaire brain boot sequence every single day. Non-negotiable. This is your pattern anchor that keeps everything else active. You deploy the crisis protocol whenever you notice yourself sliding. You continue to practice decision velocity. You keep spotting opportunities. You maintain your failure immunity through continued exposure to rejection and setbacks. But you're no longer doing 50 pattern interrupts per day. You're no longer tracking every decision. You're no longer doing intensive daily challenges. Because you don't need to. The patterns are installed. They're running automatically. You're thinking like a billionaire without trying to think like a billionaire. In the maintenance phase, you shift to weekly and monthly practices instead of daily intensive work. Once per week, you do a billionaire thinking review. You look at the decisions you made that week, the opportunities you spotted or missed, the patterns you maintained or slipped on, the value you created, the leverage you applied. This weekly review keeps you calibrated and helps you catch any regression before it becomes a problem. Once per month, you do a comprehensive brain upgrade audit. You assess all 12 areas: neuroplasticity practices, pattern interrupts, risk assessment, time horizon, leverage thinking, value creation, decision velocity, abundance mindset, network quality, failure immunity, execution bias, and integration. You rate yourself on each area. You identify where you've regressed. You create targeted practices to address weak points. Once per quarter, you do a strategic review with someone who thinks bigger than you do. A mentor, a coach, a peer who's ahead of you. You share what you're working on. You get feedback on whether you're thinking big enough. You identify blind spots. You adjust your trajectory. Once per year, you do a complete transformation review. You look at where you were 12 months ago and where you are now. You measure the changes in your thinking, your behavior, and your results. You celebrate your progress. You identify your next level of growth. You recommit to continuous evolution. This maintenance structure ensures that you don't slip backwards while also ensuring that you continue growing. Because here's the thing, there's no final destination. There's no point where you arrive and stop evolving. Billionaires don't think they've figured everything out. They're constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly upgrading. The goal isn't to complete the 90-day protocol and then coast on that progress for the rest of your life. The goal is to build a permanent practice of continuous brain optimization, to install the patterns deeply enough that they become automatic, and then to keep expanding beyond them. Now let me give you some advanced practices for years 2 through 5 of your journey. Once you've completed the initial 90-day installation and maintained it for a full year, you're ready for more sophisticated upgrade protocols. Year 2, focus, mastery of uncertainty. In Year 2, you're going to deliberately increase your exposure to uncertainty and ambiguity. You're going to take on projects where the outcome is highly uncertain. You're going to make investments without knowing if they'll pay off. You're going to pursue opportunities that require years to materialize. This trains your brain to be comfortable in the unknown, which is where all massive opportunities exist. Most people avoid uncertainty at all costs. Billionaires live in it comfortably. Year 3, focus, speed, and scale. In Year 3, you're going to focus on doing everything faster and bigger. You're going to cut your decision time in half again. You're going to pursue opportunities that serve 10 times more people. You're going to build systems that create 10 times more value. This stretches your brain beyond its current limits and establishes new baselines for what's normal. Year 4, focus, strategic relationships. In Year 4, you're going to obsessively focus on building relationships with people who operate at the highest levels. You're going to join exclusive groups. You're going to attend high-level conferences. You're going to find ways into rooms where billion-dollar deals happen. You're going to build genuine friendships with people worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This upgrades your environmental inputs and exposes you to thinking patterns you can't develop in isolation. Year 5, focus, legacy, and impact. In Year 5, you're going to shift from wealth accumulation to wealth deployment. You're going to start thinking about how you want to be remembered, what impact you want to have, what you want to build that lasts beyond your lifetime. This activates a different set of neural patterns related to meaning and purpose, which paradoxically often leads to even greater wealth creation. But all of this assumes you successfully complete the initial 90 days and maintain the patterns through Year 1. That's the foundation everything else is built on. And that's where most people fail. Not because the practices don't work, but because they don't do the practices. So let me give you one final tool to increase your likelihood of success: the commitment contract. Research shows that people are dramatically more likely to follow through on commitments when there are external consequences for failure. So, here's what you're going to do. You're going to create a commitment contract with yourself. You're going to write down exactly what you commit to doing for the next 90 days. The 7-minute morning practice every day. The micro challenges. The pattern interrupts. The exercises. All of it. You're going to be specific about what success looks like. Then you're going to add consequences. If you complete the 90-day protocol successfully, you get a reward. Something meaningful. Maybe a trip you've been wanting to take. Maybe a purchase you've been considering. Maybe a celebration with people you care about. Something that your brain will want to earn. If you fail to complete the 90-day protocol, you have a consequence. Maybe you donate a significant amount of money to a cause you hate. Maybe you delete something you've been building. Maybe you give up something you enjoy for a month, something that your brain will want to avoid. Then you're going to make this contract public to at least 3 people who will hold you accountable. People who care enough to actually check on you. People who will call you out if you start slipping. People who won't let you make excuses. This external accountability dramatically increases your follow-through rate. When it's just you and your private intentions, it's easy to rationalize quitting. When you've made a public commitment with consequences, it's much harder to give up. Now, I want to address the voice in your head that's probably saying, "This all sounds great, but I don't have time for 90 days of intensive practice. I'm too busy. I have too many responsibilities. Maybe later when things calm down." That voice is your poverty programming talking. That voice is the exact pattern that needs to be interrupted. Because here's the truth. If you're too busy to spend 7 minutes per morning, plus some focused effort on rewiring your brain, you're too busy to ever become wealthy. You're trapped in a pattern of trading time for money. You're stuck in reactive mode. You're letting your circumstances control you instead of designing your circumstances. The 7-minute morning practice takes less time than scrolling social media. The micro-challenges mostly involve doing things you're already doing, just with more intentionality. The pattern interrupts happen in the moment and take seconds. The total time investment is probably 2 to 3 hours per week of focused effort. If you can't find 2 to 3 hours per week to transform your financial future, the problem isn't time. The problem is priorities. And here's what's really happening when you say you don't have time. You're doing a cost-benefit analysis in your head. You're weighing the certain effort required today against the uncertain payoff in the future. And because your brain is wired for short-term thinking, because you haven't yet expanded your time horizon, you're discounting the future reward too heavily. You're making the wrong calculation. So, let me help you do the math correctly. Let's say you invest 3 hours per week for 90 days on this brain upgrade protocol. That's 270 hours total. Now let's say this protocol helps you increase your income by just $50,000 per year. That's the equivalent of earning $185 per hour for the time you invested. And the return compounds every year after that. But let's say it does more than that. Let's say it helps you build a business that generates an extra $1 million in value over the next 5 years. Now you've earned over $3,000 per hour for your time investment. Still think you don't have time? The people who say they don't have time for transformation are the same people who will look back in 10 years and wonder why their life didn't change. Time passed either way. The question is whether you used it to evolve or to maintain the status quo. Let me share one more story. This one about failure. Because not everyone who goes through this protocol succeeds immediately, and I want you to understand what failure looks like and how to handle it. Emily was a graphic designer who went through the 90-day protocol with enthusiasm. She completed the morning practices. She did the micro-challenges. She launched a project. And it failed completely. Not just failed to succeed. Failed spectacularly. She lost money. She embarrassed herself publicly. She had to admit defeat. For about 2 weeks, Emily spiraled. She felt like the entire transformation process had been a waste. She questioned whether any of it was real. She wondered if she was just not cut out for wealth building. Her old patterns came roaring back. But then something interesting happened. She remembered the failure immunity training. She remembered that she had deliberately practiced viewing failure as data instead of identity. She remembered that she had built psychological scar tissue specifically for moments like this, and she deployed those patterns. She wrote out everything she had learned from the failed project. She identified 10 specific mistakes she had made. She recognized 5 things she would do differently next time. She treated the failure as expensive education instead of evidence of inadequacy. And then she started the next project. Her second project succeeded modestly, made a small profit, validated some assumptions, gave her confidence. Her third project succeeded significantly, generated real revenue, created real value, demonstrated real capability. Her fourth project became a full-time business, generating over $300,000 per year. Emily now credits her initial failure as the most valuable part of her transformation, because it proved to her that the failure immunity training actually worked, that she could survive setbacks without falling apart, that failure was temporary, but quitting was permanent. That pattern was worth more than the specific success of any individual project. So, if you go through this protocol and your first venture fails, good. You're right on track. You're getting the expensive education. You're building the scar tissue. You're proving to yourself that you can handle adversity. This is all part of the upgrade process. The only real failure is not trying. The only real failure is quitting. Before the patterns have a chance to work, the only real failure is listening to the doubt voice at day 35 and walking away from your transformation. Everything else is just data collection. Now, let me address one final objection that often comes up. Some people worry that becoming focused on wealth building will make them selfish, greedy, or morally compromised. They've absorbed cultural messaging that money is corrupting, that wealthy people are bad people, that pursuing wealth means abandoning values. This is poverty programming at its most insidious, and it needs to be interrupted immediately. Because wealth is neutral. Money is a tool. What you do with it determines its moral value. There are generous billionaires and greedy poor people. There are ethical, wealthy people and corrupt middle-class people. The amount of money you have doesn't determine your character. Your character determines what you do with your money. In fact, I'd argue that building wealth is one of the most moral things you can do if you use it right. Wealth gives you options. Options give you freedom. Freedom allows you to live according to your values, instead of being forced to compromise them for survival. A wealthy person can choose to work on problems they care about. They can support causes they believe in. They can help people they love. They can create opportunities for others. A poor person can't do any of that because they're too busy surviving. Moreover, creating wealth requires creating value. You can't build significant wealth without solving problems for many people. The process of wealth creation, done right, is inherently valuable to society. You're making things better, solving needs, improving lives. Getting paid is just the byproduct of the value you've created. So if you have moral objections to pursuing wealth, I'd encourage you to reframe them. Don't pursue wealth for its own sake. Pursue the ability to create value at scale. Pursue the freedom to live according to your principles. Pursue the capacity to help others. Pursue the resources to solve problems you care about. These are all deeply moral pursuits, and they all require building wealth. The billionaire brain isn't about becoming greedy. It's about becoming capable. It's about upgrading your thinking so you can create more value, serve more people, and make a bigger positive impact. If that's not moral, I don't know what is. So here we are. You've listened to this entire audiobook. You understand the concepts. You know the practices. You have the 90-day protocol. You've heard the stories. You understand the science. You know what's possible. The only remaining question is, what will you actually do? Will you close this audiobook, feel momentarily inspired, and then slip back into your old patterns? Or will you treat this as the beginning of your transformation? Will you commit to 90 days of intensive neural rewiring? Will you do the 7-minute morning practice starting tomorrow? Will you begin the micro challenges? Will you interrupt your poverty programming? Will you build your failure immunity? Will you expand your time horizon? Will you think in terms of leverage? Will you become the person who thinks like they're worth $100 million? This is the decision point. Everything hinges on what you choose right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because if you don't commit immediately, you won't commit at all. The moment of inspiration will fade. The old patterns will reassert themselves. Life will distract you, and nothing will change. But if you commit right now, if you make the decision before you finish this audiobook, if you take one action within the next hour, everything becomes different. The momentum starts. The transformation begins. The brain upgrade initiates. So I'm going to ask you to do something right now, before you move on to whatever's next in your day. Take out your phone or a piece of paper. Write down these words. I commit to completing the 90-day Billionaire Brain Upgrade Protocol starting today. I will do the 7-minute morning practice every day without exception. I will complete the micro challenges. I will interrupt my poverty programming. I will build my billionaire brain. I will upgrade my mind and multiply my life. Write that down. Write today's date next to it. Sign your name. This is your commitment contract. This is the moment your transformation begins. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Don't plan to do it later. Do it right now. This is the pattern interrupt for the biggest limiting belief of all, the belief that someday is better than today. Because here's the final truth I need you to understand. Your brain is already changing right now. Just by listening to this audiobook, just by exposing yourself to these ideas, you've activated neuroplastic mechanisms. New synapses are forming. New pathways are being created. The question isn't whether your brain will change. The question is whether you'll intentionally direct that change toward billionaire thinking patterns or allow it to default back to poverty patterns. Your brain is plastic. It's malleable. It's upgradable. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to consciously choose what patterns you install, to decide what person you become, to determine what future you create. This power won't last. The window of neuroplastic potential activated by this audiobook will close within hours. If you don't act now, you'll miss it. So make the choice. Write the commitment. Take the first action. Start your transformation. Upgrade your mind. Multiply your life. The billionaire brain you've been listening about isn't some distant possibility. It's your immediate reality waiting to be activated. All you have to do is decide. I want to close with a visualization exercise. Find a quiet place if you can. Close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Take 3 deep breaths. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out slowly for 6 counts. Feel your body settling. Feel your mind quieting. Feel yourself becoming present. Now imagine yourself 90 days from now. You've completed the entire protocol. You've done the work. You've rewired your brain. See yourself waking up on day 91. Notice how you carry yourself differently as you get out of bed. There's a confidence in your movements that wasn't there before. A certainty in your energy. You know who you are now. You know what you're capable of. Watch yourself go through your morning. Notice how you think about the day ahead. You're not anxious about problems. You're excited about opportunities. You're not worried about failure. You're curious about experiments. You're not concerned about others' opinions. You're focused on creating value. Your brain is operating in a completely different mode. See yourself sitting down to work. Notice the quality of your focus, the clarity of your thinking, the speed of your decisions. When an opportunity appears, you evaluate it in seconds instead of weeks. You see the leverage immediately. You calculate the expected value automatically. You make the call and move forward. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just clear, confident, billionaire-level decision-making. Watch yourself interact with others throughout the day. Notice how differently people respond to you. They sense something has changed. They're drawn to your energy. They ask for your opinion. They bring you opportunities. They want to collaborate with you because you've become a different person. Not in superficial ways, in fundamental ways. Your brain upgrade is visible in everything you do. Now see yourself at the end of that day. Look at what you've accomplished. Not just busy work. Real value creation. Real progress toward meaningful goals. Real movement in the direction of wealth. You've done more in one day than most people do in a week because you're thinking differently. Because your brain has been upgraded. Because you've installed billionaire patterns. Feel the satisfaction of that productivity. Feel the confidence from making high-quality decisions rapidly. Feel the excitement about the projects you're building. Feel the abundance mindset coursing through your consciousness. This isn't fantasy. This is your reality 90 days from now if you do the work. Now expand the timeline. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. See yourself looking back at the person you are today listening to this audiobook. Notice how much has changed. Your income has increased significantly. Maybe you've doubled it. Maybe you've tripled it. Maybe you've created entirely new revenue streams. Your net worth has grown dramatically. You've built assets that appreciate. You've created equity in businesses or properties. You've invested in opportunities that are compounding. But more importantly, look at how you think. The patterns that felt forced and unnatural at day 30 are now completely automatic at day 365. You don't try to think like a billionaire. You just think like a billionaire. It's your new default. It's who you've become. The old poverty patterns feel foreign now. You can barely remember what it was like to catastrophize risk or think in scarcity or seek safety over opportunity. Watch yourself spot an opportunity that the old you would have completely missed. You see the problem. You immediately envision the solution. You calculate the market size. You assess the leverage potential. You design the value creation system. You make the decision to pursue it. And you do all of this in the time it used to take you to decide what to have for lunch. This is the power of the upgrade. Now see yourself 5 years from now. You've maintained and expanded these patterns consistently. You've gone through multiple upgrade cycles. You've continued evolving. Where has this taken you? What have you built? What wealth have you created? What impact have you made? Maybe you've built a business that generates millions in revenue and serves thousands of people. Maybe you've accumulated a portfolio of assets worth millions of dollars. Maybe you've created intellectual property that generates passive income indefinitely. Maybe you've built a network of relationships that opens doors you didn't know existed. Maybe you've achieved financial freedom and now work only on projects that fulfill you. See this version of yourself clearly. Notice the quality of their presence, the depth of their confidence, the breadth of their capabilities, the magnitude of their impact. This person is successful not because they got lucky, not because they had special advantages, but because they upgraded their brain, because they installed different thinking patterns, because they committed to transformation and followed through. Now here's the most important part of this visualization. That person 5 years from now is looking back at you right now in this moment. They're watching you listen to this audiobook. They're watching you reach this decision point. They're watching you choose whether to commit or retreat. And they're sending you a message. Listen closely to what they're saying. They're telling you that committing to this transformation was the most important decision of their life. They're telling you that the work was hard, but worth it. They're telling you that they almost quit several times, but pushed through. They're telling you that every moment of discipline, every pattern interrupt, every uncomfortable challenge was necessary. They're telling you that they wish they had started sooner. They're telling you not to wait another day. They're telling you to begin right now. Feel the weight of that message. Your future successful self is literally begging you to start. They can see what you can't see yet. They know what's possible. They know what will happen if you commit. And they know what will happen if you don't. They're watching you with hope and concern, wondering which choice you'll make. Now, imagine an alternative timeline. Imagine yourself 5 years from now if you don't do this work, if you close this audiobook and go back to your old patterns, if you let the inspiration fade and the transformation die. What does that version of you look like? See them clearly. They're older, but not wiser. They're still stuck in the same patterns that are trapping you now. They're still catastrophizing risk and thinking in scarcity and paralyzed by decision-making. They're still trading time for money. They're still frustrated by their financial situation. They're still dreaming about wealth, but never taking the actions required to build it. Watch them look back at this moment. Watch them remember listening to this audiobook. Watch them realize that this was the turning point they didn't take. Watch them feel the regret of knowing they had the opportunity and wasted it. Watch them wish desperately that they could go back in time and make a different choice. Feel that regret. Let it motivate you, because that future only happens if you choose it now. You're standing at a fork in the path. One direction leads to upgraded mind and multiplied life. The other direction leads to same old patterns and same old results. Both futures are real possibilities. Both are available to you. The choice you make in the next hour determines which one becomes your reality. Open your eyes now. Come back to this moment. You're here. You're now. You have the knowledge. You have the protocol. You have the tools. The only question is, will you use them? Let me give you the exact first steps to take in the next 24 hours to ensure your transformation begins successfully. Because knowing what to do and actually starting are two different things. I'm going to remove every obstacle between you and your first day of transformation. Within the next hour, you're going to do 3 things. First, you're going to create your commitment contract. Take out your phone or grab a piece of paper right now. Not in 5 minutes, right now. Write these exact words. I am committed to completing the 90-day Billionaire Brain Upgrade Protocol. I begin today. I will do the 7-minute morning practice every day without exception. I will complete the micro challenges with integrity. I will interrupt my poverty programming every time I notice it. I will install billionaire thinking patterns through consistent practice. I will not quit before day 90, no matter what challenges arise. Write today's date. Sign your name. This is your contract with yourself. Second, you're going to share this commitment with 3 people. Text them right now, not later. Right now. Tell them you're starting a 90-day transformation protocol. Tell them you need accountability. Tell them you've made a commitment and you want them to check on you. Ask them to message you every Monday asking how your practice is going. Give them permission to call you out if you start making excuses. This external accountability increases your follow-through. Rate by over 300%. Third, you're going to complete your first pattern, interrupt. Right now, think of one limiting belief you have about money or wealth or your capabilities. Maybe it's, I'm not the kind of person who builds businesses. Maybe it's, making real money requires connections I don't have. Maybe it's, I'm too old to change my financial situation. Whatever it is, identify it clearly. Now say out loud, that's poverty programming, not reality. Then immediately replace it with a billionaire belief. I am exactly the kind of person who builds successful businesses. I can create valuable connections through strategic relationship building. My brain is upgradable at any age, and my best years are ahead. Say the new belief out loud 3 times. Congratulations, you've just completed your first pattern interrupt. Your transformation has begun. Within the next 6 hours, you're going to do 3 more things. First, you're going to set an alarm for tomorrow morning. Label it Billionaire Brain Boot Sequence. Set it for 7 minutes before whatever you normally wake up. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, you're going to complete the 7-minute morning practice before you do anything else. Before you check your phone, before you scroll social media, before you do anything. This establishes the pattern anchor that will sustain your entire transformation. Second, you're going to complete Day 1's micro-challenge, the poverty phrase purge. For the rest of today, you're going to catch yourself every time you use scarcity language. Every time you say, I can't afford that, or I don't have time, or that's too expensive, or I wish I could, but. Every time you catch yourself, you're going to stop and reframe using abundance language. Track how many times you catch and correct yourself. Your goal is at least 5 before the day ends. Third, you're going to begin your transformation journal. Create a document or buy a physical notebook. Label it 90-Day Billionaire Brain Upgrade. On the first page, write today's date and answer these questions. What limiting beliefs do I currently have about money and wealth? What's my current financial situation? What are my biggest fears related to wealth building? What would I attempt if I knew I couldn't fail? What do I want my life to look like 90 days from now? Write freely. Don't filter. This creates your baseline that you'll look back on with amazement in 3 months. Within the next 24 hours, you're going to complete 3 final setup actions. First, you're going to block time on your calendar for the daily practices. 7 minutes every morning for the boot sequence. 15 to 30 minutes each day for the micro challenge. These are non-negotiable appointments with your future self. Treat them like you would treat a meeting with your most important client, because you are your most important client. Second, you're going to identify your accountability partner. This should be one of the 3 people you texted earlier, the person most likely to actually follow through on checking in with you. Message them specifically and ask if they'll be your primary accountability partner for 90 days. Explain what that means. They'll check in with you every week, they'll listen when you're struggling, they'll celebrate your wins, and they'll call you out if you start making excuses. Most people will be honored to play this role if you ask them directly. Third, you're going to prepare your environment for success. Remove distractions that will sabotage your practice. Delete time-wasting apps from your phone. Unsubscribe from email lists that fill your attention with noise. Clean your workspace so it supports focused work. Put your commitment contract somewhere you'll see it daily. Set up your journal in a place where you'll remember to use it. Design your environment to make the right behaviors easy and the wrong behaviors hard. These first 24 hours are critical. This is when most people lose their transformation before it even begins. They listen to the audiobook, they feel inspired, and then they do nothing concrete. The inspiration fades. Life intervenes. Old patterns reassert themselves, and they stay stuck. But you're not going to let that happen, because you're going to take these 9 specific actions within 24 hours, and those actions will create momentum. And momentum creates more momentum. And before you know it, you'll be at day 7, then day 21, then day 40, then day 90. And you'll be transformed. Let me paint one final picture for you. Imagine it's 6 months from now. You're having dinner with a friend you haven't seen since before your transformation. They're asking you what's different because they can tell something has changed. They can't quite put their finger on it, but they sense that you've evolved in some fundamental way. How do you explain it to them? You tell them about the 90 days you spent deliberately rewiring your brain, about the morning practices and the micro-challenges and the pattern interrupts, about the fear you faced and the beliefs you changed and the actions you took, about how hard it was at times and how you almost quit but didn't, about how the changes felt imperceptible day to day, but became undeniable when you looked back over months. You tell them about the projects you've launched, the opportunities you've pursued, the decisions you've made that your old self would have agonized over, the risks you've taken that your old self would have avoided, the value you've created that your old self couldn't have conceived. And you tell them about the results, the income increase, the net worth growth, the business traction, the wealth accumulation. But more than any of that, you tell them about the internal shift, how you see the world differently now, how opportunities are everywhere when you're trained to spot them, how decisions are easy when you have clear frameworks, how failure doesn't hurt when you've built immunity, how leverage is obvious when your brain is wired to see it, how abundance feels when you've practiced gratitude daily for months, how confidence grows when you've proven to yourself repeatedly that you can do hard things. Your friend listens with fascination. They're inspired. They want what you have. They ask how they can start their own transformation. And you send them this audiobook because you know it works, because you're living proof, because your upgraded brain created a multiplied life. And you want that for everyone you care about. This conversation happens 6 months from now. Or it doesn't, depending entirely on what you do in the next hour, on whether you complete those 3 initial actions, on whether you start before the inspiration fades, on whether you choose transformation over stagnation. I can't make this choice for you. I can't force you to do the work. I can't guarantee that it will be easy or comfortable or convenient. But I can guarantee this. If you commit, if you follow through, if you complete the 90 days with integrity, your brain will upgrade, your thinking will transform, your results will multiply. This isn't theory, this isn't hope, this isn't positive thinking, this is neuroscience. This is how brains work. This is proven and replicable and available to you. The billionaire brain you've been learning about throughout this audiobook isn't some rare genetic gift. It's not reserved for a special few. It's not locked behind barriers you can't overcome. It's a set of neural patterns that can be installed through specific practices, and you now know exactly what those practices are. You know how to interrupt poverty programming. You know how to recalibrate your risk assessment. You know how to expand your time horizon. You know how to think in terms of leverage. You know how to see value creation opportunities. You know how to make fast decisions. You know how to build failure immunity. You know how to maintain abundance mindset. You know how to execute before you're ready. You know everything you need to know. The knowledge isn't the limiting factor. The limiting factor is whether you'll bridge the gap between knowing and doing, whether you'll move from understanding to implementation, whether you'll transform information into action. That's the only thing standing between you and your upgraded mind. That's the only thing preventing your multiplied life, not circumstances, not limitations, not obstacles, just the gap between knowing and doing. So close that gap. Right now, put down whatever you're holding. Stop whatever you're doing. Open your phone or grab paper. Write your commitment contract. Text your 3 accountability people. Complete your first pattern, interrupt. Do these 3 things before you move on with your day. This is the moment. This is your turning point. This is where everything changes or everything stays the same. And then tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, you'll begin the 7-minute billionaire brain boot sequence. You'll prime for gratitude. You'll reinforce your identity. You'll check for pattern interrupts. You'll practice decision velocity. You'll anchor visualization. You'll set value creation intention. You'll ask the leverage question. 7 minutes that change your entire day. 7 minutes that compound into a changed life. Day by day, pattern by pattern, decision by decision, you'll install the billionaire brain. It won't always feel dramatic. Some days will feel boring. Some days you'll wonder if it's working. Some days you'll be tempted to skip the practice. Some days the old patterns will feel stronger than the new ones. This is all normal. This is all expected. This is all part of the process. The transformation doesn't happen in one moment of blinding insight. It happens in 1,000 small moments of choosing the new pattern over the old one, of interrupting the limiting belief, of making the fast decision, of spotting the opportunity, of taking the leveraged action, of giving generously, of facing rejection, of visualizing the future, of reinforcing the identity. Each moment feels small, but they compound. After 21 days, you'll notice the patterns becoming more familiar. After 40 days, you'll notice other people responding to you differently. After 60 days, you'll notice opportunities appearing that weren't there before. After 90 days, you'll look back at day 1 and barely recognize the person you were. That's when you'll know the upgrade is complete. That's when you'll understand that every 7-minute morning practice was worth it. That's when you'll realize you've become the person who thinks like they're worth $100 million. And here's the beautiful part. Once the patterns are installed, once they become automatic, once they're your new default, maintaining them requires almost no effort. You don't have to try to think like a billionaire. You just think like a billionaire. It's who you are. It's how your brain operates. The upgrade becomes permanent. But that only happens if you start, if you commit, if you follow through, if you persist through the doubt valley, if you maintain the practice even when you don't feel like it, if you trust the process even before you see results, if you become the person who does what they said they would do. So here we are, the end of this audiobook, but potentially the beginning of your transformation. The information has been transmitted, the knowledge has been shared, the protocol has been outlined, the path has been illuminated. Everything you need is now in your head. The only remaining variable is you, your decision, your commitment, your action. What will it be? Will you close this audiobook and return to your previous patterns? Will you tell yourself you'll start later when the time is right? Will you let this moment of clarity and inspiration fade into another unrealized intention? Or will you grab your phone right now and write your commitment contract? Will you text your accountability partners in the next 10 minutes? Will you complete your first pattern interrupt before this hour ends? Will you begin your transformation today? The choice is yours. But understand this. If you choose to wait, you're not choosing later. You're choosing never. Because later never comes. The right time doesn't arrive. Circumstances don't magically improve. The only time you ever have is now. And now is either when your transformation begins or when another opportunity passes you by. Your billionaire brain is waiting. It's not somewhere in the future. It's not conditional on circumstances changing. It's available right now, today, this hour, this moment. All you have to do is reach out and claim it. All you have to do is decide you're the person who does this. All you have to do is take the first action. So decide. Right now. Are you in? Are you committed? Are you ready to upgrade your mind and multiply your life? If the answer is yes, then prove it. Don't just think it. Don't just feel it. Do it. Complete those 3 actions in the next hour. Start your transformation before this day ends. Become the person who finally closed the gap between knowing and doing. Your upgraded mind is waiting. Your multiplied life is waiting. Your billionaire brain is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to claim it? Welcome to your transformation. Welcome to your upgraded mind. Welcome to your multiplied life. Now imagine yourself 90 days from now. You've completed the entire protocol. You've done the work. You've rewired your brain. How do you carry yourself differently? How do you speak differently? What opportunities do you notice that you're blind to now? How do you respond to challenges? How do you make decisions? What does your daily life look like? What projects have you started? What relationships have you built? How does it feel to think like someone worth $100 million? Really see this version of yourself. Notice the details, the confidence in their eyes, the calmness in their presence, the clarity in their thinking, the speed of their decisions, the boldness of their actions. This person is you, not a fantasy version, not someone else. You, 90 days of neural rewiring from now. Now imagine yourself 5 years from now. You've maintained these patterns. They've become automatic. What has your life become? What businesses have you built? What value have you created? What wealth have you accumulated? What impact have you made? What freedom have you achieved? What legacy are you building? Before we complete this visualization, let me share 3 more detailed transformation stories that illustrate different aspects of the billionaire brain upgrade. These are people who faced specific challenges and applied specific parts of the protocol to overcome them. First, there's Rachel. Rachel was a marketing executive at a large corporation making $180,000 per year. She was comfortable financially, but felt completely trapped professionally. She had ideas for businesses she wanted to start, but was paralyzed by the fear of giving up her steady paycheck. Her scarcity programming was specifically around financial security. She couldn't imagine voluntarily walking away from guaranteed income, even though she was miserable. Rachel focused intensively on the abundance mindset installation for her first 30 days. She completed the gratitude practice every morning without exception. She documented 30 pieces of abundance evidence every single day. She eliminated all scarcity language from her vocabulary. She practiced giving generously, even though her brain screamed that she should be hoarding resources. She forced herself to see examples of people who had taken financial risks and thrived. The shift happened around day 38. She was in a meeting at work, listening to her boss criticize a project she had spent months on. And suddenly, instead of feeling afraid of losing her job, she felt annoyed that she was wasting her time in this environment. The fear was gone. It had been replaced by confidence that she could create value and generate income anywhere. Her scarcity programming had been overwritten. She gave notice the next week, started her first business the month after. It failed within 6 months, but instead of panicking and running back to corporate employment, she started her second business. That one generated $50,000 in the first year. Her third business, which she started while still running the second, generated $300,000 in year 1 and is now on track to do over $2 million this year. Rachel's net worth is now higher than it would have been if she had stayed in her corporate job for 10 more years. And she works half the hours with 10 times the fulfillment. What changed? Not her intelligence, not her skills, not her circumstances, just her neural programming around financial security. Once she installed abundance patterns deeply enough, the fear that had paralyzed her simply disappeared. And without that fear, everything became possible. Then there's Thomas. Thomas was a successful real estate agent earning over $300,000 per year. He wasn't trapped by scarcity. He was trapped by short-term thinking. He made good money, but he spent almost all of it. Nice cars, expensive vacations, designer clothes, fancy restaurants. He was stuck on the hedonic treadmill, always needing to earn more to sustain his lifestyle, but never actually building wealth. Thomas focused his 90-day protocol on time horizon expansion. He did the future self-letter exercise 10 times instead of once. He created a detailed vision of his life at age 80. He practiced calculating the long-term opportunity cost of every purchase. He studied compound interest obsessively until he could feel it emotionally, not just understand it intellectually. He designed a 25-year wealth-building plan and put pictures of his future self on his bathroom mirror to see every morning. The transformation was radical. Within 60 days, Thomas had completely restructured his relationship with money. He stopped seeing expensive purchases as rewards for his hard work. He started seeing them as obstacles to his future freedom. He sold his luxury car and bought a reliable used vehicle. He moved to a smaller but still nice apartment. He stopped eating at expensive restaurants multiple times per week. He cut his lifestyle spending from 70% of his income to 30%. But here's what's interesting. He didn't feel deprived. He felt liberated, because he was now operating from a long-term mindset. Every dollar he saved was a dollar working for his future self. Every investment he made was planting seeds for decades of compound growth. Every sacrifice in the present was buying freedom in the future. His brain had rewired to feel pleasure from building wealth rather than from consuming it. 5 years later, Thomas has a net worth of over $3 million. He's on track to retire at age 50, with more passive income than he currently earns working full-time. His real estate agent income hasn't increased dramatically, but his wealth has exploded because he finally learned to keep and invest what he earns. The shift from short-term to long-term thinking was worth millions of dollars to him. Literally. Finally, there's Linda. Linda was an entrepreneur who had already built a successful business, generating $2 million per year in revenue. She wasn't struggling financially. She wasn't trapped in a job. She wasn't spending everything she earned, but she felt like she was playing too small. She knew she was capable of building something much bigger, but she couldn't see what that something was. She was stuck in incremental thinking, trying to grow her existing business from $2 million to $3 million instead of thinking about how to get to $20 million or $200 million. Linda focused her 90-day protocol on leverage thinking and 10x goal setting. She did the Billionaire Hour exercise every single day, forcing herself to think about goals that were 10 times bigger than her current trajectory. She studied businesses that had scaled from millions to billions and documented the leverage mechanisms they had used. She practiced asking, "How could I 10x this?" about every aspect of her business. She joined a mastermind of entrepreneurs running businesses 10 times larger than hers and absorbed their thinking patterns. The breakthrough came when she realized she was still operating with a freelancer mindset despite running a $2 million business. She was still trading her time for money, just at a higher rate. She had 50 clients and was personally involved in delivering value to each one. If she wanted to 10x her revenue, she would need 500 clients and would have to personally work with all of them, which was impossible. Her business model didn't have enough leverage to scale, so she completely redesigned her business. Instead of selling customized consulting to 50 clients, she created a productized service that she could deliver to 500 clients with the same team size. Instead of being personally involved in every client relationship, she built systems and trained people to deliver excellent results without her direct involvement. Instead of pricing based on her time, she priced based on the value created for clients. These leverage upgrades transformed her business model. 3 years later, Linda's business generates over $25 million per year in revenue. She works less than she did when it was generating $2 million. She has a team of 40 people delivering value to over 600 clients. She owns equity in a rapidly appreciating asset instead of just having a well-paid job. And she's already designing the next 10x leap that will take the business to $250 million. What changed? She already knew about leverage intellectually, but she had never rewired her brain to see leverage opportunities automatically. The 90-day protocol installed that pattern so deeply that she started seeing leverage everywhere. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Her brain had been permanently upgraded to scan for multiplication instead of addition. These 3 stories illustrate something crucial. The billionaire brain upgrade doesn't have one single outcome. Rachel used it to overcome fear and escape corporate employment. Thomas used it to shift from consumption to wealth building. Linda used it to break through growth ceilings and scale dramatically. Same neural rewiring process, different applications, different results, but all transformational. And here's what all 3 of them would tell you if you ask them what the most important factor in their success was. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't luck. It wasn't connections. It wasn't timing. It was simply deciding to start and then not quitting. Committing to the 90 days. Doing the morning practice even when it felt pointless. Completing the micro-challenges even when they were uncomfortable. Interrupting the patterns even when the old beliefs felt true. Persisting through the doubt valley. Maintaining the practice even before seeing results. Just deciding to finish what they started. That's the only real differentiator. The protocol works for everyone who actually completes it, but most people don't complete it. They start with enthusiasm and quit with excuses. They make it to day 15 or day 25 or day 35, and then something happens. Life gets busy. They get distracted. They hit resistance. The old patterns feel easier. They tell themselves they'll restart later. And they never do. Rachel almost quit on day 23. She had a terrible day at work, came home exhausted, and didn't want to do the practices. The voice in her head said, "Just skip today. You'll do extra tomorrow." But she remembered this was exactly the moment the protocol warned about. This was a test. This was where most people fail. So she did the practices despite not wanting to. And that decision, that single moment of pushing through resistance, was perhaps the most important decision of her entire transformation, because it proved to her brain that she was serious. That this wasn't just another half-hearted attempt. That she was the kind of person who does what she commits to doing. Thomas almost quit on day 36. He was in the doubt valley, questioning whether any of this was actually changing anything. His bank account looked the same. His circumstances looked the same. The practices felt mechanical and pointless. But he had made a commitment to 90 days. So he kept going. And around day 50, things started clicking. The patterns started feeling natural. The thinking started feeling automatic. The results started appearing. If he had quit at day 36, he would have missed everything. Linda almost quit on day 42. She was too busy. Her business was demanding. She didn't have time for daily practices on top of everything else. But then she realized this was her scarcity thinking. This was her small thinking. If she was too busy to invest 3 hours per week in upgrading her most valuable asset, her brain, then she was too busy. Period. She needed to cut other things, not cut her transformation. So she eliminated low-value commitments and protected her practice time. And that decision to prioritize her brain upgrade over busy work was what enabled her business to eventually 10x. So, when you hit your moment of wanting to quit, and you will hit it, remember these 3 stories. Remember that the moment you want to quit is usually right before the breakthrough. Remember that everyone who succeeded had to push through the same resistance. Remember that the difference between people who transform and people who stay stuck is just persistence, not talent, not circumstances, just the decision to keep going when it would be easier to stop. Now imagine what your specific transformation will look like. Which of these 3 stories resonates most with you? Are you like Rachel, trapped by fear but ready to break free? Are you like Thomas, earning well but building nothing permanent? Are you like Linda, successful but playing smaller than your capabilities? Or are you facing some entirely different challenge that these same neural patterns can help you overcome? See yourself clearly 5 years from now. You've applied the protocol, you've maintained the patterns, you've overcome your specific obstacles. What has your life become? What businesses have you built? What value have you created? What wealth have you accumulated? What impact have you made? What freedom have you achieved? What legacy are you building? See this clearly. Let it feel real, because it can be real. This isn't fantasy. This is the natural result of upgrading your brain and maintaining those upgrades. You're looking at your actual potential. The only question is whether you'll do what's necessary to realize it. Now, come back to the present. Open your eyes. You're here, today, with the same brain you've always had. But now you know that brain is upgradable. You know the specific patterns that need to change. You know the practices that will change them. You know the timeline for transformation. You have everything you need. Your billionaire brain is waiting. It's not somewhere out there. It's not locked behind some door you don't have the key to. It's inside you right now, dormant, ready to be activated. Every billionaire started exactly where you are, with a brain running poverty mode programming. The difference is they found the upgrade path and they walked it. You now have that same path. The question is whether you'll walk it, whether you'll do the work, whether you'll commit to 90 days of intensive transformation, whether you'll practice when it's uncomfortable, whether you'll persist when it feels pointless, whether you'll trust the process even before you see results. I can't make you do this. No one can. This is your choice, your responsibility, your opportunity. But I can tell you this. If you commit, if you actually implement this protocol, if you rewire your brain from poverty mode to prosperity mode, your life will transform. Not because of magic, not because of luck, but because of neuroscience, because of the fundamental truth that your brain determines your thinking, and your thinking determines your results, and your brain is upgradable. You're not stuck. You're not limited by your past. You're not condemned to repeat the same patterns forever. You have the ability to upgrade your mind and multiply your life. The technology exists. The research is clear. The path is outlined. All that's missing is your decision to walk it. So decide, right now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances are better, not when you feel ready, now. Are you going to do this? Are you going to commit to 90 days of neural rewiring? Are you going to become the person who thinks like they're worth $100 million? If your answer is yes, then start immediately. Don't wait until you finish this audiobook. Don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until you've prepared more. Start now. Open a document and begin the belief archaeology exercise. Write down the first limiting belief that comes to mind. That's your first neural pathway marked for demolition. This is it. This is the moment. Everything changes or nothing changes based on what you do in the next 24 hours. Will you take action? Will you begin the upgrade? Will you commit to your transformation? Your billionaire brain is waiting. Welcome to your upgraded mind. Welcome to your multiplied life.